What's up, people? Welcome to a brand new edition of Wrestle Update. And by brand new, I mean this is the biggest show of the year in all of wrestling, the show that made us all come together. We've done a bunch of reviews for WrestleMania Week so far. We talked about a lot of stuff. Obviously, first and foremost, our hearts are on the indies a lot of the time and in Japan, and we covered everything we could. But now we're at the big one, the granddaddy of them all. They don't really even say that anymore, though. But regardless, it is WrestleMania. And of course, I could not do it alone. I had to be joined on the penultimate stop of this journey, because there is a night 2 that we're also going to talk about. But we are here at WrestleMania. Nello, how does it feel to arrive at the big time?
We are here for the show of shows. It is almost as good of an atmosphere as spring break. Not quite as of an electric crowd. Honestly, the most electric crowd all weekend is at Marvelous. I swear to God. Those people were loud.
And those were like the deep fans, you know, the hardcore, diehard type of fans. Because Marvelous isn't even like anywhere near a major Joshi company. You have to be dedicated to really be into them. Yep. They're starting to get a little bit more buzz with the Marigold working relationship that they have. But they are, there's something that they need to have. You have to really want to find them. And yeah, that show was great. I
would love for them to get on Wrestle Universe.
And we saw it with Sendai getting that spot this year. Hopefully Marvelous can take a step forward in that as well. It would be great. And we can follow the career of the great Senka Akatsuki. All the Senka maniacs out there, which we both are. And Sora Ayame as well is a wonderful rookie. I always say, don't forget about Sora. She's got a ton of potential as well. Senka's just she's something special. You know, she's like Anzai level rookie talent. So yeah, all in all, we don't really need to get to, talking about the whole week as a whole yet. We can save that for after night 2 when it's all said and done. But overall, we came here to WrestleMania and we've spoken about it. We talked about our NXT review that we did for Stand and Deliver. We're definitely more casual WWE viewers for sure. Occasionally I'll watch Raw because my grandma wants to watch it pretty much, but we do follow along and we know what's going on generally. Like if something crazy happens on SmackDown, like the Tiffany and Charlotte stuff, we will follow along with it. But overall, we've had this weekend, and we talked about it at the start. This build-up has just been stale, and it sucked. And even the whole WrestleMania week, we weren't there for a while, but I feel like it's the longer we've gone in this weekend, I feel like we've both warmed up to it more. So where were you at when this show started, when you saw Jelly Roll come down to sing God Bless America? What were you feeling?
Dude, when they announced that, I immediately got up and went outside to smoke.
Good idea.
It was like, they were like, Jelly Rolled America the Beautiful, and I just didn't even say anything. I just immediately stood up and walked outside. I was, it's been a pretty nightmare PR week in terms of and optics. Yeah. Like, they've done everything they can to make me not excited or really into them at this moment. Like, I think NXT Stand and Deliver was a lot more inoffensive just because it's NXT and there wasn't as much like exposure on them this week. But like with your big matches featuring both your main eventers coming out and saying like some pretty ignorant, gross and uneducated stuff. And then in addition to Triple H, like just making some really brain dead comments. Some really thin-skinned things, and then Nick Connigan using his platform to take pot shots at AEW. It's all just been like, okay, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, they didn't have to say anything this week, and it's such a better week. So my excitement, honestly, and even like my comfortability level with like in taking this show, and I say this as someone who had no issues with Sabu's retirement match, so so judge me as you will. No moral qualms there.
That's true.
But yeah, like not super excited for the show, honestly, but like I was excited to come in and still watch. just to discuss with you. So,
This is our first WrestleMania together. Our hiatus because of your video game stuff last year started right before WrestleMania. So we kind of missed it last year. And there was a lot to talk about last year. And I think just on pure build, I thought last year was a lot better than what we got this year. And it's not even last year wasn't like an all-time great or anything. It just was a lot better than this year, which I think is one of the worst builds we've seen. And like you said, the PR hits have been crazy to me. Like, a lot of the stuff they were saying, I think first and foremost, we have to congratulate AEW on becoming the number one company in the world, according to Nick Khan, as he's claimed that WWE is the underdog players in wrestling. In his interview, you said some really just terrible and stupid stuff, like just really stupid stuff more than anything, and very ignorant stuff that Roman Reigns and John Cena have said, and Triple H as well. So a lot of bad PR, like you said. It takes a lot for CM Punk to look like the good guy on this show, and somehow they've managed to do that, and using that good guy term extremely loosely in this case. So a lot was going on. I think we got to start off with the news that broke literally because we finished our show talking about Stand and Deliver like maybe 10 minutes before WrestleMania.
Oh my God,
started.
you just reawakened me into a nightmare. I forgot they bought AAA. Holy shit.
Yeah,
Spadush
exactly.
This morning in our Discord server literally was like, you ever just wake up and find out WWE bought AAA? So, fuck.
That's how it was. You lived that life. Shout out Spadush. Shout out Yannick on that one. But yeah, just what he said. WWE brought AAA. They had this big announcement, and I didn't even know it was happening. I know they announced the Worlds Collide show, and I felt bad about not even talking about it on the Stand and Deliver. Then that's when you told me. He was like, "Hey, I think they bought AAA," and I was like, "What?" On there is like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, so if you don't know, AAA is the number 2 Lucha Libre company in Mexico. Obviously, CMLL is the number 1. But
so what's really fucking me up about this whole thing is that WWE is saying that by buying AAA, they're going to keep traditional Lucha Libre alive. When AAA at its core is the alternative to traditional Lucha Libre. Like, it's so antithetical to what they're saying, where it tells me that they have no idea of what they're actually doing. They're, again, just going to create something in their image and try to take down an entire territory.
And we're still very early on in this transaction, but you are exactly correct, though. AAA started when there was an employee in CMLL. His name was Antonio Pena, and there was a ton of disagreements and stuff that happened, and he ended up breaking off at the end of the day. He started AAA to kind of be like, hey, if you know CMLL's history, their nickname in Spanish is like the serious and the stable. Like that's what it translates to. So they're known for being like a really good, like they were a really good, like old school, very traditional Lucha Libre. CMLL was. AAA was meant to be almost like taking the luchadors and the Mexican talent, but really trying to combine a lot of what the WWE was doing and how they promoted their shows at times. And you can see that in the Attitude Era kind of rubbed off on them into the early 2000s with some outrageous angles that they did at the end of the day. I think that, you look at this here, I don't think they even know any of that, like Triple H and these guys. I don't think they know anything about the history of AAA or Lucha Libre or anything like that. I think that you have to look at things here. We're going to have to wait and see what actually happens. As you said, I think a lot of people are very unhappy and wary about this, and for obvious reasons. I think it's interesting because Pena had died I mean, almost 20 years ago at this point. But, Maricela was owning the company. Dorian Roldan was owning it. The whole family. It was a family-owned business going on there. We don't know, what money changed hands here. We don't know how much it cost. They didn't announce anything like that going in there.
Which is fucked up. I really want to know the numbers, and I'm hoping that WrestleNomics is able to pull some stuff out.
Yeah, we're really on. It's an ongoing story, to be honest with you, in a lot of ways. I will say this: as crazy as it may seem, and as much of a panic switch as this may be for some people, the truth is AAA has been trying to sell to WWE for a long time now, and there's been backs and forths for, upwards of a decade, honestly, at this point. If you followed the Lucha Underground situation, there was a ton of legal tie-ups involved in those contracts that they signed, and AAA did a very big disservice to its talent, to be perfectly honest with you, in a lot of ways. And they've had ideas for AAA wanting to poke around in this at the end of the day. I personally think, and I know if you are any kind of interested in Lucha Libre, what you need to do right now is go on Twitter or wherever, follow this guy, Lucha Blog, also known as the Cubs fan. And he knows more about Lucha Libre than basically everyone. He's a great source. I've done shows with him on Lucha Talk before. He knows everything. And he had the same opinion I had. And that's that when and I don't think, let's just put it this way. I don't believe in coincidences in wrestling. And how long ago was that AEW and CMLL show was announced? A week's, 2 weeks ago, maybe?
They see them get 1 foot in the door in the territory, and then they have to buy up a chunk of it immediately.
Exactly. That AEW show threatened WWE into making a move that they were on the edge of, but didn't fully want to commit to. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, in my opinion, at the end of the day. I think that they are a company where, and Cubs made a great point on Twitter. He was talking about it. It's not unique to just Lucha Libre. You go to Japan and anywhere, if you're a big name company, you're basically owned by some gigantic backer, pretty much. Although CMLL is not owned by a backer, their family made money outside of Lucha. They were known for renting out properties and things like that, and have had inroads in all kinds of different sports, and they have a lot of wealth for that. AAA, it's like the Pena family. This is what they have. They don't have a big conglomerate behind them or anything like that. And a lot of the pay was really hard, and they tried a bunch of different things. They opened up a Cancun territory. They tried to do a bar and grill and Lucha Libre type of deal. Those things really flopped. They tried to do different things at the end of the day. They had to cut a lot of people. The company was in bad straits for a long time, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Another thing, too, is when you look at the press conference, because just looking back at that photo, not only does it look like the Last Supper of Lucha Libre.
It's really weird.
It's very ominous. But how much of that talent in that photo is actually utilized in a meaningful way on television weekly? Maybe 30%. And I think that already tells you their level of investment in Lucha Libre, because it's always been for them not about expanding the vision of and providing a platform to the magic of Lucha Libre, but just simply finding the next Rey Mysterio to capitalize on a demographic monetarily.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get to the WWE side in a second, but for AAA, they if you follow their TV, their main story for the last 8 months to a year was that they were trying to sell the company. As the storyline on TV was JBL being the one trying to take over and all of that stuff, which is ridiculous in its own right, some would say. The funny story is they aired an episode of their TV during WrestleMania, the ending promo was JBL talking about wanting to buy the company after the company had been announced to be sold by WWE. And a true WWE
if I'm not mistaken, he literally said, "I've bought the company."
Well, he lied, I guess.
Yeah.
But a lot of the fans that are watching AAA are wondering if this is all like a storyline because of their own storylines at the end of the day. So they were trying to do that. AAA does not have the legacy of CMLL in Mexico. They are far, far, far removed from that. They also don't. The great thing about CMLL, it makes them different than any American or Japanese promotion. As I mentioned, they make a lot of money outside of Lucha by selling stuff. They own their own buildings. Like Arena Mexico is property of CMLL. It's not like they have to pay to use it. It's like basically free money. They own it. With their business model, it's been very successful at the end of the day. They don't have the situation of where they could train people or anything like that. They had to bring indie guys to their company. CMLL could bring guys from their training schools in. Occasionally, CMLL would bring in indie guys too, but for the most part, they had their own school and their own setup for that. AAA, they were a company that tried a lot of different things, and they were very WWEized in terms of how they did it. They were an Americanized version of Lucha Libre. That's how we always covered them on Lucha Talk at the end of the day. From the WWE side, it really does feel like, as I said, I think they were threatened by that AEW show. I really do feel like that was a big part of why they did this, because on paper, it's not necessarily clear what they would gain from them on a wrestling level. Like none of what you said, they have a great roster of luchadors. All of those wrestlers that they had at that podium were some of their best wrestlers. But they never use them. Like pretty much. I mean, listen, Cruz del Toro, I've known that guy for over a decade. I watched him when he was Genzo on the Indies. That guy can wrestle circles around 90% of that roster, and we saw it a little bit a couple of weeks ago on Raw. He's an amazing worker, but you would never know it watching their show. You've got Dragon Lee. He was world renowned. Ilda Fantasma, Santos Escobar. Both of the Garzas, fantastic. I think Carrillo's a great wrestler that they have, and charismatic, all the things you would want. But they don't use them to their potential. So when you see that from a wrestling level, what do you think that they really gained? I mean, clearly Vikingo is the project guy that they would have. And there was a time 5-10 years ago that would have been an amazing signing. Or maybe 5. 10's a little hard, but 5 years ago or so, he would have looked like an incredible signing, game changer type of guy. I think now with all of his injuries, I just don't see any path for him to become a main star with how they use their guys. Ultimately, the idea that they would get something positive would have to be, the only logical conclusion would be that they have this brand in Mexico proper. And that leads to the question of how will they accomplish that when you look at how badly AAA's been doing at the end of the day. I think, yeah.
I was like, isn't AAA's top talent Alberto El Patron?
He's the champion right now. They can't use him like, WWE.
And so it's interesting too. I'm wondering how are they just going to pay out contracts for people they don't want? Like, is Pagano a WWE superstar now? Is Chessman a superstar now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Are there any, if you had 3 talents, because I watch CMLL as regularly as I can. Like, I would say I try to catch a couple, shows a month, just the big ones. I'm a big Hechicero and Mascara Dorada and Soberano Jr. guy. Also Neon. I got really into Neon this year.
He's great.
Is there? I'm very unfamiliar with the AAA roster, which is to say, who are 3 people on their roster, if there are 3, that you think would do really well in this new situation?
And that's the thing. We don't even know what the situation is, unfortunately, that they're in right now. I will say this.
I guess who would thrive on a bigger platform with more funding? Like, are there any actual stars in this company, or is it more so just like a grab bag of like sports entertainers right now?
It's a grab bag. I mean, like, if you look at their guys that they have on the roster, one of the ones that they, um, that they really always put into big situations is like Nino Hamburguesa. Like that's not somebody that WWE would want at all. Like,
He's
he's
a
like,
big guy.
yeah, exactly. He's a
Yeah,
big guy,
yeah.
a charismatic big guy, and fun character and all that. But that's not somebody they want. He's the one who won the. I actually watched that stupid Ray Day Reyes show when I could watch last month, and he was one of the guys. He won. He won the Ray Day Reyes on top of it.
And a lot of the big AAA guys have sort of left over the past couple of years, like the better talents, I feel
exactly.
like your Mortos.
Yeah,
God, who else? I don't know. My brain just keeps showing me Mr. Iguana.
he's still there. So if they want him, like, then by God, Mr. Iguana, this could be your chance here. I mean, you have Octagon Jr. As well, still there as one of their main like younger guys. They bring in a lot of, they use like SBK and Takuma on most of their big shows as well.
SB Kento?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, him and Takuma are there, if they mean something. You get the guys from.
Quick sidebar. Very sorry, but that Dragon Gate 6-man from their show the other night,
Amazing.
Incredible. It was so much. You watched it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, the sequence where Shun gets on the fan's shoulders and then Ben K puts another fan on his shoulders and then the fan and Shun chicken fight. I was like, this is cinema. And then they go back in and have an absolutely just regular killer match. It was so much fun. This was also one of my first time seeing Ishin, because I've kind of fallen off with Dragon Gate and I really liked him. So really
he's a lot of fun.
match. Weekend highlight. I think probably at the end of this week we could probably do a favorite 10 matches of Mania each or something, and that'll definitely land on mine. But you just popped in my head with that Kento.
Yeah, the tag match is also a must watch. The Panthers and Arcade El Divino and Ultimo Maldito. I love that match. Yeah, that was a fantastic match. That might be up there for me as like a match of the weekend contender. The 6-man was great in the main event. I thought that show was a big step up from the Rebirth. And I was so happy to see it overall as well. So really cool stuff there. But yeah, AAA, like I said, a lot of the big names are gone. They still have Sansone and Forastero, which, I mean, that's another like legal can of worms that they're going to have to deal with. Not that they necessarily did anything like criminal on there, but it was their brother who was unfortunately, like, I mean, I'm not revealing anything. I'm not supposed to. It's well known. Like, he abused Stephanie Vaquer, like Quattrero, like their brother, to the point where he went to jail. Like, it wasn't like an accusation and nobody knows. Like, no, he went to jail over this. Like, and it was a terrible, terrible thing that she.
And there were a lot of Lucha Libre people came out in defense of him.
Yeah, and then people were led by like Conan and stuff like that. Is one of the big names that did that. Even on the AEW side, Roosh posted a picture, but he took it down really quickly on there. And there were some guys that, I mean, they're his brother, they're brothers, so who knows what they think, overall. But that's another can of worms they're going to have to deal with, because those guys are probably two of the better wrestlers that AAA has as the younger guys. And if they come over, there's going to immediately, like, they're going to get lumped in with Quattrero, or at best, they're going to be like, hey, you supported this motherfucker who did this horrible crime. And, I mean, who knows what Stephanie thinks of all of this at the end of the day. I don't want to speak for her at all. She was at the press conference, though. I mean, she was there. So, I mean, I don't know what her mindset is. Again, I don't want to speak for anyone or speculate on that end. But that's another thing they're going to have to deal with. With the brother, with Alberto, like you said, who's had a ton of criminal stuff on his past as well. To the point where I don't even think you could use him, to be honest, in WWE. As morally, like, bankrupt as this company may be, and they certainly are, even them from a business sense would not be stupid enough, in my opinion, to use him.
So it's wild how much damage control they already have to do in this simple transaction.
And that's why I said I think to me there's no benefit to this on paper outside of literally just having this in Mexico. To do what exactly though? At the end of the day, if they needed to sign people, they could have just done that already. I don't know how many people know this, but bringing up Stephanie Vaquer again. Look at her interview she said a week or two ago, which was meant to be a positive for WWE, but it was also kind of made them look bad at the same time. But she was basically like, AEW offered me a great contract. WWE told me they can't match it and they won't pay as much. But I told them I don't care about the money. I'll just go to WWE because that's my dream. People don't understand how much WWE as a brand means to Latin Americans in a lot of ways. Especially in that case in Chile. In Mexico, it's not as big, but there still is that part. Like they see WWE as the greatest major league you could have in a lot of ways. The same way, even for New Japan and for the CMLL guys, going to Japan is seen as a great honor, even beyond being just in Arena Mexico. That name is going to have weight with people in Mexico. It just is. And they could have signed them anyway, in a lot of ways. I see it somewhat similar to the TNA, when people talked about them buying them. If they wanted to sign people from there, they would just do it. Just like they got Jordan Grace. That doesn't change that. So I'm wondering what the big picture goal exactly is of this, of a company that's really been on, I don't want to say death's door. That's not really accurate, but they've been on a downward spiral for the last few years. AAA has as a company. They get the name, they get the library, they get all of that. They might be able to get an in to top indie guys.
In terms of their library, because this isn't hey, we're an American company and we own all of our library. Yeah. How much does AAA own of their own archive? Do you know?
That's a good question. I don't think they own, because the TV, there's a rumor that, this goes back to CMLL, but there's a rumor that there's a secret base in TVS Tecca's basement. It's a huge freezer a lock that has all the tapes of shows that never got aired on TV, because Lucha Libre wasn't on TV much until the late 90s. Back to the 80s and stuff. There's this big vault with all the old stuff there. That we'll probably never see because of that. But yeah, I just think that they're going to try to use this to get an end to the main indie guys and things of that. I think the worst case scenario is that they really take this seriously and just pump a lot of money into this at the end of the day. Where they think, man, Mexico, they need more WWE, and we need to make this a major, major company at the end of the day to fight CMLL. Because as I said, CMLL, they do have money from their outside Lucha Libre endeavors, but they won't be able to match TKO in terms of money. That's just not going to happen at the end of the day. We'll see what happens going in there. I think it could be a big change to the balance of power, pretty much. I have no idea what their plans are, to be honest with you. I have no idea what they even could be, because I'm wondering what they're going to try to do and why. What is the end game? Because I know with UFC, TKO, they were, they had to be really goaded to spending money on a lot of stuff here. So I wonder what they're going to do with this overall. But it's something, it's something we'll have to see going forward. And that's like I said, that's kind of the worst case scenario if they really take this serious and just want to pump a ton of money. But I don't know what they particularly have to gain from that, because they have an all-star team of luchadors already that make them very little money outside of Rey Mysterio. So I don't know.
Do you think they try to purchase their own venue a la Arena Mexico?
if they could do that, that would be a good idea, to be honest with you. But the thing is, though, they don't have the cachet that CMLL has, like as in terms of a legacy.
Yeah.
They would not be able to, like, they can't buy Arena Mexico. Like, so that's out. And if you're wanting a tourist, the thing is, a lot of CMLL's fans, let's be honest about it, are tourists. Like, for the Arena Mexico shows on Friday, they have a bus that will take you there because it's a part of the culture. It's not just an indie show. It's not even just an AEW level promotion or a WWE promotion.
Yeah.
It's
no, every time
culture.
I've had a friend go to Mexico City, they always send me a picture of them at CMLL on a Friday. Always.
And that's a part of the culture. And AAA will never be able to achieve that, no matter how much money that they may have in this sale. So I don't know if they know that. They may just think they can handle Mexico like America. And if that's true, I've got some bad news for them, because they're going to be for a rude awakening. That will not fly. Like, if they try to run and think of Mexico like a big indie that they can pull out, it's going to be bad for them. Like, this will be a failure if that happens. And I do think that may very well be how it plays out. They feel like just because they're so big that they're untouchable, and they just think they can throw money at stuff. But that's not going to fly when you're dealing with cultures. Same thing with Japan, a lot of people talk about. And there it's even harder, because there's laws in place to prevent foreign companies to like do stuff like this. Pretty much, they would have to get around somehow. And I mean, the real truth is, money, if you throw enough money at something, eventually you can make it work. But what's the upside to that for them, and is it worth it for them? So far, the answer has been no. I think they were prodded into doing this. This was a panic move on their part, because, as you said, we saw AEW make a step in with their just one single show in Mexico, caused them to not want to cede ground. And that's actually part of what I think, too. This whole thing may be a big dick wave move to AEW, and they don't even have grand plans for it, which may unfortunately end with AAA closing down if they don't have a real plan for it going forward. And that would be a shame. But AAA has been on dark times. Like I said, there's a reason they sold it now, and they were happy to do it.
Their shows never come across my desk. Like, I can't tell you the last time a AAA match or anything was like came across even a social feed.
Yeah, even Triple Mania. Like, they even Triple Mania.
And that used to be a big thing, you know?
They have a legacy. They've had great matches in the past, that company has. Especially of the hardcore-esque style that you would never ever see in CMLL. I think back to the Dr. Wagner and Blue Demon match. I think back to the Taya Valkyrie and Hamada street fight match, which was an amazing match as well. Those kind of matches, that was really their bread and butter. So we'll see what they do heading forward. Like I said, I hope for the best for the luchadors involved. But like you said, there's already a ton of red tape that WWE would have to cut through to use some of these guys and some of their main people. Those are champions, like your world champion and your tag team champions between, NGD and Alberto. So they're going to have to figure that out. But it is a major story, and it could, like I said, it could really shake up the balance of power in Lucha Libre in the worst case scenario. But we're going to wait and see on that. We don't know what's going to happen. Again, this literally just happened. We're all going to try to take a step back and see what happens with it overall. So let's get to the
what is it? Give it 3 weeks.
That's the golden rule of Wrestle Update as coined by Nello. Give it 3 weeks. So we go to the show, Allegiant Stadium in Nevada. There was first and foremost, we have to say there was 5 different official theme songs to this show. I feel like obviously you had Fiend, which is the one everyone points to. It's played 1 million times on those shows at this point. You did have the Weekend song as well, because that was the big shocker at first. They thought they would not have a Weekend song for the first time in 5 years. But they brought him back anyway. He will not go away, no matter how many times we want him. Playboy Cardi also on that as well. I like that they played a commercial for Cardi B hosting SummerSlam this year as well during this as well. So 61,467 people announced. We'll see how legit that is, I guess, on there. I have to say, this crowd was far from a hot one for most of the show. I think it goes to show of, like, we weren't the only ones down on this card or down on this build, and maybe some of the bad press they've gotten this week did play into that. I don't know, but for whatever reason.
Another symptom as well is it's something that we're seeing across a lot of sports right now, especially in the NBA, is that you're pricing out a lot of passionate and hardcore fans, and you're making the events more about a status post and less about, hey, we're going because we love this, right? And so because of that, I think that you do get less enthusiastic crowds as well. But I don't think that bothers them when their pocket goes so deep.
Yeah, I mean, they charge these outrageous prices. And you mentioned a great point about the NBA. Same circumstance. A family of four shouldn't have to pay thousands of dollars to go to this kind of show. But unfortunately, a family of two will have to pay thousands of dollars at this point to get into WrestleMania. And it's just a shame that happened. I will say I saw a lot of people that have gone there, like even from my timeline, that are more casual and stuff like that, and they were just there for the weekend, and they just said, like, fuck it, why am I going to WrestleMania weekend, not going to WrestleMania itself? So, it is what it is, I suppose. As we mentioned, Jelly Roll did his thing. I didn't actually watch that either, to be honest. So, whatever. What do you think of the set? Because I think always the set design of WrestleMania is one of the biggest points of it.
It was cool. I liked how they sat people on it. I thought that was,
me too. That was really
very,
cool.
Very Broadway play. So
great
I thought
idea,
that was
too.
cool.
Yeah, it was cool financially, but also good aesthetically as well to do that.
Yeah.
Very good. I think especially for like Tiffany's entrance when they made it into the Playhouse. I think that really helped it too, to have the people on top of the stage. Really cool at the end of the day. So guess who came out first to get the opening pop? As he always does, much like MJF and AEW, there's one man you could count on to open up every show. Triple H. After his 1 hour and 7-minute Hall of Fame speech that he gave, he came in to this week to get the pop. He didn't say anything, just said, "Are you ready?" Blah, blah, blah. What a Cardi. Like, has there ever been more of an egomaniac in wrestling than Triple H? Seriously, an hour-long speech? Fuck, man. Whatever. So the show starts off with main event Jey Uso opening the show here. They come in with a big, like, there's this line of people with flags that say yeet on them. The Las Vegas Raiders cheerleaders come in. Makes no sense at all. He is from San Francisco, so clearly should be a Niners fan. I mean, well, I guess it's possible he liked them when they were in Oakland and, maybe transferred there. But the stadium goes crazy for him with the yeets and all that stuff. Gunther comes out with a normal entrance, pretty much. So they work a match early on where they try to do a bunch of stuff. They tease the choke for Gunther. We've seen that in the build-up where he's choked people out with it. Jay got a spear early. They went back and forth. This was a really basic match. And the tide changed when on the outside, Gunther grabbed the belt. And Jay tried to dive and got the ref out of the way, but then Gunther used that to use a belt shot on him at the end of the day. Gunther beats the hell out of him. Jay suddenly starts smiling at the chops going in there. Very similar to you remember the main event match between Brock and Roman, where Brock was beating the hell out of Roman and he just smiled a little bit. at him, and they tried to go for something that totally flopped. And I don't think this got very over either, to be honest. But in the end, they did some counters. Jay hit his own power bomb and hit 3 straight Uso splashes, 1 on the back, and then he pulls him up into a sleeper hold, and then Gunther taps out almost right away. I have to say, you look at this match, my prediction for it and what I thought it would be a really bare bones and average match that maybe the crowd can elevate to a solid one and make his title win feel like a moment. What we actually got was somebody whose heart was not in this at all, and I thought they had a well below average match. And when he tapped out so fast, I think that totally killed what would have been an amazing pop. We've seen amazing crowd reactions for Jey Uso. I think back to the France show where that crowd was just nuclear for him. And here, this didn't get that big of a reaction, this tap out finish. And I have to wonder what they were thinking making it like this. There was no struggle, no blood, which was a big part of the buildup with Gunther beating down Jimmy. They just got in, got out. You got the tap out almost immediately, and the crowd didn't even pop that much for it. I don't know, man. I mean, it's got a 4.67 rating, and I think that's not inaccurate. I think it's a below average match and very disappointing crowd reaction for what should have been a huge moment. What did you think?
Yeah, the highlight of this was the entrance. Jay looked gassed,
Yeah.
right after. This was bad. This was Gunther in average,
This was one of the worst Gunther matches I've ever seen.
Yeah, and then you had Jay not adding anything to his repertoire. What the gimmick of the match is that Jay's just going to do Gunther's offense on him. So you have Jay doing lariats and chops and power bombs, and none of them look as good as Gunther's. And it just kind of felt like Jey Uso cosplaying a champion. And that
wasn't the build to this match. Like, we saw Jimmy get bloodied. The big moment at the end was Jimmy in the ring smiling at him. Jay cut that amazing promo 2 weeks ago where he said, I'm going to say a prayer to God to forgive me for who I'm going to have to become and the pain I'm going to put you through. Why wasn't there blood?
And
this should have been a brawl.
Yes, yeah. It was a very pro wrestling match. There was no malice, really. Like, the whole thing just, it felt like Jay, again, going through these motions and just trying to get to a finish. I don't think that, if he came out and put on a hell of a performance, awesome. I'd eat my words, right? You always want people to succeed. I don't come into this wanting a garbage match. Yeah, but it was really disappointing. And again, like, even from a Gunther standpoint, he is the monster for everyone to beat. And I think it's unfortunate that the past 2 Manias now have had to end his title reigns. Like, I think because his Intercontinental reign was booked much better than his World Heavyweight reign. I mean, he's been champion since SummerSlam. Can you tell me one match that he had that was memorable, or a feud?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really disappointing because that's 8 months. That is 8 months he held the title and they couldn't figure out what to do with him.
But a lot of it's been wrapped up with Jay. They said it themselves. They've wrestled 4 times. They couldn't have found somebody else. You had the Priest deal, which was an okay feud, I guess, but it didn't mean anything, really. The Finn stuff was totally unmemorable, nothing special. Like, the first half of this feud with Jay, he was feuding with Alpha Academy on top of it. Like, they couldn't do something better for this amazing title reign. I mean, that's crazy to me, like how poorly it's been used. But like I said, I don't think he did very good in this match, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know why. I think he knows this reign sucked. And I think they were disappointed because they actually did. They were one of the few matches that did end up having good build by the end.
Yep.
And they just got slotted in the opener. Like, I think they felt like they should have been the main event. And unfortunately, like I just don't think Gunther's heart was in this match at all. And Jay was just Jay. Like there was nothing special about what he did. Like I said, if I had booked this, I would have had Jay immediately rush the ramp and brawl with Gunther. Have him run through the flags and the cheerleaders to get to Gunther when he's walking down. Somebody should have bled in this match, whether it was Jay or whether it was Gunther or whether it was both of them. I don't care. We've seen them use blood before. Use fake blood if you have to. But somebody needs to get their ass busted open and considering the build. And like you said, they instead worked this opposite story with Jay copying Gunther. It made no sense, and the match blew. Like this was not good at all, I have to say. It's got a 4.67 rating, as I said. This to me, I might give it a 1.5. It's like 3-star, like 3 out of 10 maybe, like type of level.
I would go 3 as well.
Yeah.
It was when they slotted this, I was like, okay, they've done this historically where they slot a world title match in the first spot, right? They want to get the pop. It typically goes 6 minutes, and it was like, no, they're going to go 16. And again, it really felt like Jey Uso cosplaying as Gunther, and Gunther wasn't even really himself. So just a really off match. Bad climax to one of the only good builds, and with Rollins we'll get there, but I see him being a 2-month champion hopefully.
Yeah, this won't last. I mean, again, look at the reaction. That was not a mega pop that he got when he won, and I thought it was such a dumb move to end it with a sleeper on top of it. Like, why couldn't he struggle in it? He just gave up, like literally gave up in real life and in the finish to the match. Very disappointing. And I know a lot of people weren't hyped for this match. I like the idea of Jay winning the Rumble, actually. I thought it was a nice surprise. I got where he was going, and I thought this would be a huge reaction. We didn't even get that overall, so very poor stuff here to start the show off. And again, even this part was Jimmy came in. There was no big build to it. He just turned around and he was in the ring smiling. Like, he didn't rush it. That could have been a climactic moment to the match. Like, let's say Gunther bloodied Jay up and beat his ass down, had him in the sleeper with blood pouring down his face. Jimmy could have made an appearance right then and there to wake him up, and that could have led to the finish, and that would have gotten a huge pop. And they did again. They gave up on easy pops. I don't get it. Very poor opener.
Yep.
It makes you wonder to me. Like you said, I think what you said is ultimately true. This will be a short title reign. It makes you wonder if there are people backstage that aren't on board with this and just want to get it over with more than have any. They don't want this to succeed, it seems like, with how they booked this.
They gave the fans what they wanted, and now they can move past it almost. And here's the thing, the match was centered around, can Jay be a good wrestler? Can he be a world champion? Not about whether he can beat Gunther at his own game. And there's some really good UFC fights, right? Oh my God, Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, where Edwards isn't a wrestler, Colby is. And so what is Edwards going to do? He's going to wrestle fuck him the whole fight just to prove a point. And that was such a good story and such a good fight because of that. But that wasn't what this was about. And then Jay tapping Gunther out felt, honestly, and people might think I'm overreacting here, but it just felt fucking disrespectful. And the sense of Jey Uso should not be submitting Gunther at all. It's just crazy. And then commentary did say this later. I watched the post show, but they emphasized when they showed the replay of the match that Gunther tapped immediately, not because he realized he was caught, and he's the type of guy that's not going to pass out because he knows he can take a loss and then win it back or whatever. So they really tried to justify the quick tap. It's a term of intellectual maneuvering by Gunther, which it is response. So all of that said, not a fan. This was just felt so off and weird. And again, it's one of those things where it's very kayfabe requires a level of immersion, and you can't get me to believe that Jey Uso can out Gunther. It's just too much of a suspension of disbelief. It's this whole time I was I'm watching a staged wrestling match.
Yeah. And then, like, that wasn't even the story heading into the match. So,
You know what? Just to cleanse the palate real quick,
yeah.
so we can get some good vibes going into the next thing. Do you
Yeah.
know who won the clusterfuck?
Who?
Brody Lee Jr.
That's awesome. I was like, that's really cool.
And you know who introduced him? Is the final entrant, Chris Bay. Just a really fucking awesome, special pro wrestling moment. So there was something really great last night.
That's awesome. Like that's so cool, man. Yeah, very big ups to Janela. This week. I mean, as nuts as his show was, like what a great way to end the collective on in such a great way. Like that's so cool. So then they come around. It's funny because like the build up to the tag team title match was basically like they turned on Big E, and now we're at this title match. Like that literally happened like what 6 months ago, like that Big E turn, and nothing happened between then and this match at WrestleMania because they didn't know what to do with them. And I think this is a match. I think in hindsight, if they were going to do this turn, and I mean, you kind of had to do it on the anniversary. I think it would have been better if they had just gone with the idea Big E floated in that promo, have him be the manager, have them build up to a tag title shot at the Royal Rumble, and then they lose it, and then the next week we get the segment we got. That way we could jump right from the turn into a WrestleMania tag title shot. Instead of having them do nothing and feud with LWO in a meaningless feud for all these months. Because like they're not hot anymore. Like they're not where they were like 6 months ago. And the War Raiders, even we said yesterday, you don't even like them on that end. Except for Ivar, who was very good in his role. So, you know, you have a love-hate relationship with the War Raiders, I suppose.
Yeah, this match was perfect because I was deflated after Jey Uso and Gunther. I was like, you know what? I deserve a sweet treat after that. And then they showed the graphic for War Raiders and New Day, and I said, perfect. And I left to go to the shop across the street. So, and when I came back in, it was literally the 1, 2, 3 pin, and I was like, perfect. That's all I needed to see. So I have no opinion on this match because there was no part of me that wanted to watch it. They made me not want to watch it. I thought it's disrespectful that they put this shit on the pay-per-view and not the SmackDown ladder match that everyone's put their heart and soul into over the past few months, worked their ass off to earn. So yeah, this actually I can't give an opinion, but I can say it sucked.
What about did you get the pizza?
No, so I wound up getting a sandwich instead. I'm getting pizza today. Yeah.
Okay, good. I appreciate that right there. I love the pizza respect here.
Yeah, I got the mortadella sandwich.
Oh, okay, very nice. Here, the Italiano, very nice. Yep. So all of this buildup was, and I think I say it on every one of these WWE reviews. Pat McAfee, man, he sucks as a commentator. Yeah. He actively takes away from almost every match. Like no joke. Like, I think these shows would be a lot more tolerable if he wasn't there. And this started off. So the Raiders came down. I thought this would be perfect. They could dress as like the Vegas Raiders. That's their name. They're the Raiders. Get a cheap pop. Do whatever. Instead, they came out cosplaying Clash of Clans characters.
And then that's when it sunk in and you're like, this is a fucking product placement match.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm like in their latest sponsorship deal. The problem is you had Pat on commentary. He was going on and on about Clash of Clans. Like this, he must be a huge fan because he was explaining the lore of these guys. And Cole had said some sponsor read. He's like, no, it's not just that. There's this other part that you have to respect when it comes to Clash of Clans. And I played Clash of Clans like 10 years ago with my ex-fiance. We used to play together. I can't believe it's still around after all these years, let alone getting WrestleMania moments here. So they came in. They worked a pretty basic match. I think one of the highlights was, first of all, Woods. He ended up going into a double stop, and he suddenly does, because the crowd's not reacting to anything, where Wood starts to do like the flare strut for no reason, seemingly, to get everyone to woo. And then suddenly he gets clocked. Ivar tries the Doomsault, but he nearly lands on his head because he slipped on the top rope. And they replayed it and showed where he slipped. And it was very scary. But thankfully he made it over. They got a spot where he did finally hit the Doomsault, but Woods made a save with the limit break. In the end, they look for Fallout, but they counter that. Woods, he pulls Ivar into like a seated position because he can't lift him up for the backbreaker. Woods come off with the double stomp for Daybreak, and he gets the pin. Kingston's on the outside holding the leg. New champions. Like, it was all right, but the crowd wasn't there. Like, the match didn't feel important at all. And the finish was really weak, I thought, with the holding. It was barely any cheating. I really think they blew this match by not having Big E involved in any way. Again, they're not following through with the stories they presented on TV at WrestleMania. It makes no sense. If Big E had come out, that would have elevated this match immediately.
Yep.
And instead, they just got in and they just got out. And as it was, this was the lowest rated match. Yeah.
If they're not going to invest, I'm certainly not going to.
And we're seeing that with the fans here. Like 4.63 rating. This was the lowest match on the show by the inmates. Now, I probably like the opener less personally. But still, this was pretty bad. I would give it again maybe 1 3/4. Like another 4 out of 10 rating. So the inmates doing it big here. Like they rated both bad matches bad. So good stuff there. They recap the Jade and Naomi thing. And then suddenly, so they bring up where Naomi shoved her off the ledge into the car door. And McAfee goes on this big rant. She's like, she tried to murder her. She tried to run her down in a car. She tried to drive over a dead body and all this. And even Michael Cole was like, that's not what happened, actually. Like, that's not what happened at all, Pat. So Pat's like rewriting his own angles on commentary now. She shoved her off the ledge, but there was no vehicular manslaughter attempts. That's a step too far. Naomi comes out with like this metal song all of a sudden, which I get it. The glow stuff is going to have to stop as a heel. They've replaced it with the caution tape. But the song was a weird artistic choice for her, like this heavy metal riff they gave her from her own like rap song that she did, which fit her a lot more. But she just had a basic entrance, kind of rocked out in the ring to show, hey, I like rock, I like metal now, baby. I'm a heel, motherfucker. And then suddenly we get Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel.
Legend.
Yes, I've watched this man since I was a child. I do the Weather Channel stuff. So he comes on and he's telling the weather for Las Vegas. And he's like, oh, everything's great. It's a sunny day. But suddenly, oh, there may be some hail. There's going to be some heavy winds. Some clouds are coming. He's like, it's at WrestleMania 41 here. And he's in front of the green screen. He runs off the set, and they cut to a storm is coming for Jade. What'd you think of the Weather Channel entrance for Jade here?
I thought it was pretty fucking corny.
He should have been in, like, you know how he does, like, when there's, like, a tornado or something, he's in with the big poncho, the hood over him and everything.
No, that was the thing. Like, all of the effects and everything were just so cheesy. I was like, this felt so
low budget
produced. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Joe, look at what they did later with Grande. Like, speaking of low budget, like, you think of WWE as the super stylized, they're the top production. But then you see something like this, and like they just literally had him in front of a green screen, and that was it. But she comes out. She has all gold attire. She's got lightning on the side of her, like attire here with the short hair. I have to say, I thought this match over-delivered, honestly. Like coming into this, I didn't think this was anything to think was special at all. I'm not a fan of either of these two as wrestlers. And I thought there was no way Naomi was going to win this. So I wasn't that invested in the match, but I thought they did a lot here to make it as good as it could be. Naomi was getting beaten down early on, but she created some space and backed off and used her to run her into the steps to get the advantage. Jade was having some problems with her gear. I was watching it with Mama, by the way, my grandma, and she constantly pointed out to me, she's like, oh, like, watch out. She can't let those slip out. She's about to have a wardrobe malfunction because she kept adjusting her gear and wasn't fitted on tight enough. There was not anything crazy that happened, but she did adjust them a lot in the match. It didn't have really any big effect, but she did do that. So Jade ended up hitting the Cabradora at one point, the tilt-a-war backbreaker. And there was a great spot where Naomi went for a blockbuster off the top rope, but Jade caught her in midair into a jackhammer, like a suplex, held her up, hit the jackhammer. The crowd stood up for that. Now, I think that was honestly the first time the crowd gave a really big reaction on the show was her hitting the jackhammer. Naomi got caught again with a slam. They ended up hitting a big move where they were on the top rope. Jade wanted the top rope jaded, but Naomi bounced up into a wheelbarrow, into a bulldog from the middle rope. Looked really cool. She followed that up with a split leg moonsault for a great near fall. They looked in. They went for kicks. Cargill hit the big pump kick that she had, and then she lifted her up for an electric chair in the electric chair position, flipped her in midair, and spun around in midair into a power bomb. Like, it looked great. Like, this looked like Zion level in All Japan level of power bomb here. It looked amazing, huge pop. I kind of wish that was a finish, but instead, she just hit Jaded for the win here. And again, that nothing got messed up too bad. I love some of the spots, like the catch to the jackhammer and the electric chair into the power bomb. The wheelbarrow bulldog by Naomi was good. There were no big flubs or botches or anything like that. It could have been a lot worse. I thought this was actually a legit solid match here.
I totally disagree with the inmates here. I'd go 7 on this.
Yeah, me too.
I thought that it was one of the better Jade matches. I really like Naomi's character. This was one of the better feuds going in. And yeah, I thought all of Jade's spots looked really crisp. And I think that's the biggest thing is like for them to look fluid and not rehearsed. And I thought that she looked better in that regard.
Me too. I think this is by far her best performance in WWE and one of her better singles matches, period, I would say. And Naomi's not somebody I think that highly of as a worker, but I thought she did very good here. Agree with you. Give it the Rex. 7 out of 10. I thought this was like overachieved. Good point on this being one of the few matches with good build to it. The Naomi and Bianca promo segment was a great segment. It felt real. They did a great job with that. And yeah, this was good. Like, they're very good stuff here. And again, very, very needed after the first 2 matches, I think, were big letdowns. So they go to Jacob and LA Knight. Jacob comes out with a wolf mask on. Solo is there next to him, and he's like, yeah, man, you're going to do this. Let's go. And then he just walks off. So that's all we saw of Solo after like a year of pushing him as one of the top heels. LA Knight comes out in a Maserati. We did see the Slim Jim commercial with LA Knight and Jey Uso on there as well beforehand. They came out. I thought this was, again, a pretty basic match. Nothing too special, but everything they did worked good. The crowd got into the LA Knight chants. They were doing the yeah and all that. Like, Knight kind of threw him into the turnbuckle, the steel post a bunch of times, shoulder first. Jacob tried to go for a moonsault, but Knight countered that by running up the ropes. Flipped him upside down from the top rope. It was good. Jacob did his Umaga hips attacks, and Michael Cole continues to stupidly say shades of Rikishi. like a move that Rikishi never did. He did the stink face, not the hip attack. But whatever. They come in. Fatu tries to go for his double moonsault, and in the end, LA Knight counters that into the BFT. It wasn't perfectly clean, but it was a great idea for a spot, and the crowd popped for it as well. So that looked very good overall. It could have been a lot worse with the timing, but it was a great idea. Like, even if it got hit 80% instead of 100%, it still was like a really good spot. In the end, though, that's a great near fall because he grabs the rope at literally the last second to break it up. Knight sells frustration, and then Fatu hits the triple jump moonsaults. Hit him back to back, get 2 in a row to win here. This match, again, afterwards too, Haku comes out to give props to Jacob. 7.15 rating. What'd you think?
Really great showcase for Fatu. Better than normal LA Knight match. I'd go like a 3 and a quarter on this. Again, like there's no reason. There's no difference between this and a Raw main event, so it didn't really feel like a Mania level match to me. Yeah. But it was a fine match.
And very little build at all. Remember, Nakamura was the champion like a month or so ago for this. They had to flip it back tonight to get to Fatu. I think Jacob's great. He has a ton of upside, great promo ability, great charisma, carries himself like a lunatic, and a strong in-ring guy. So I think he's a fine choice here. They mentioned that he had never been pinned or submitted yet, and Knight was not the guy to break that streak. I really agree with what you said. Like, better than usual for Knight, who I consider pretty average as a wrestler usually. Jacob got the most out of him. This was pretty good. I enjoyed the women's match a little bit more. I think I'm right on board with you, a 3 and a quarter level, like a 6 and a 7. Like, the inmates were a little high, but not unreasonable, in my opinion. I thought it was a cool moment to have Haku out, who was one of my favorites back in the day. We always need more Meng in our lives. So they do this recap with Grande Americano. They did they were trying to act like he was being translated, like he was speaking Spanish, but somebody was talking in English for him. And they were going on and on, and they were talking about all this stuff with Gable. Pat is saying, oh, he is, he's Grande Americano. He's not Chad Gable. And Michael Cole's like, he's not a luchador. And then Wade is like, of course, that's Grande Americano. And Cole's trying to act crazy about it. They come in with this, old movie tone, like the original Phantom of the Opera, like the brown screen, like pretty much like the yellow and brown sepia tones. They have a fucking mariachi band out here to pay him out. They cut to Vikingo in the front row here, of all people. And they do a spot where Americano goes after Vikingo, and Vikingo hits a kick. They actually gave Vikingo a physical spot here at WrestleMania, which probably made his life, but was just completely random. There's been a lot of controversy about this character, this Grande Americano. And the part of this too. So they announce him. They say he's from the Gulf of America, and then Cole immediately on commentary is like, "It's been changed. It's the Gulf of Mexico." On there, because that was another thing that got a ton of controversy. Like the first time they did it. What do you think of all of this? Yeah.
So Cole said that, and then what Pat said after was that it's because he was born before the name change. So it's a really weird fucking tiptoeing where they're where they're trying to say he's born in the Gulf of Mexico, but also now it's called the Gulf of. It's just really dumb.
The whole thing's dumb, but there's no doubt about that.
This match had a couple really impressive moments. What's that crazy name of the 450 moonsault again?
Oh yeah, so yeah,
Miracle Rocket G5. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Miracle Rocket G5. Yeah, the moonsault into a senton. It's like an inverted 450 almost, like a reverse 450 technically, more accurately. That looked incredible. I couldn't believe he did that, to be honest. Like, I don't care about what they call him. If he's doing that move, then I have to stand. I have no choice but to stand like Hazuki and Kelly right now.
Oh, that was very sweet. I saw that as well. Like, I really don't care for the El Grande Americano gimmick. It's just not for me. It feels very like 2000s.
Yeah.
But like, here's the thing. If he is a character that you want to see get beat, right? They've successfully created that.
Yeah.
I think that they could have introduced him a while ago and done the mask versus mask match here at Mania, because there is no bigger platform. And then assuming that this is going to be Rey, I'm like, they were going to do this to Rey fucking Mysterio, like have him lose to El Grande Americano at this WrestleMania, presumably to set up a mask versus mask match down the line.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm like, why would you set it up down the line when, again, there's no bigger platform than this, unless they're planning some Mexico show, right?
Yeah, maybe that's what's going to be the AAA, like, because they are doing an NXT versus AAA show, Worlds Collide.
Oh, yep.
So maybe that's where we see that could be a main event match on that show, like him versus Vikingo or somebody. Like, I would presumably be a mask wrestler that you would have there. But I mean, yeah,
and
it is.
I would say too, like, this succeeded as being a showcase for El Grande Americano. Thought Rey Fenix was very second fiddle here.
Yeah.
This was his introduction. Like, he got a WrestleMania singles match after 3 weeks on the roster, and not only did he lose in less than 8 minutes, but the crowd really didn't know him.
Yeah.
The reception was not great. There wasn't much reaction to the things he did. There was much more reaction to El Grande Americano.
Yeah.
So again, it feels like they're pushing this sort of like obviously sensitive gimmick right now because of the current political climate over the actual luchadors.
And I think that's the saddest part of all this. He is right. It was originally going to be Rey Mysterio, who they've been feuding with on TV. But Rey got hurt, and Rey Fenix was the replacement. This kind of tells you what they think of Phoenix. Like, he's jobbing already. Like, that's a big difference from how they treated his brother to try and make him feel like as big of a star as possible. Here with Phoenix, it was just like you said, it's not just that he lost. He was a replacement and second fiddle to him and the fans here. He got really one spot, the rope run into the kick. And instead, the biggest spot of the match was from Gable with the Miracle Rocket G5. So I just don't know what they were really thinking here, other than they don't care about Phoenix that much. And this was just a match to get Americano more over, I guess. And I mean, the thing is, I could totally see why this could be considered offensive, like this gimmick, for sure, this controversial gimmick. But at the end of the day, to me, I just look at it as like, this is so stupid. Like, it's so over the top that it, like, it's hard for me to get that mad about it. Like, overall, like, because it's too stupid at the end of the day. And I mean, it's like you said, it's a very old school, like, cheap heat type of gimmick, to where the fans, they might not be, like, they're gonna, like, ultimately, whatever happens, when somebody yanks this mask off of him, that's going to get a huge pop. But do we need a WrestleMania match to go, like a nothing WrestleMania match at that, to continue this streak? Like you said, if it was a mask versus mask match at Mania, that would make sense. But I guess they want to save it for a later date. I mean, who knows how this gimmick would be received in Mexico? I mean, if they did do that in an actual Mexican show. But that seems like the best idea would be to do this on that Worlds Collide show and have him finally get revealed, and it'd be a huge moment. But I just think Gable is so talented. He could be doing so much better than this goofy comedy gimmick, in my opinion. And Phoenix, I mean, it just feels like he really wanted to get out of the AEW. I will say that. We'll see how this goes. Interesting, Vikingo was in the ring anyway to help Phoenix. So that could be the match. It could be Vikingo versus El Grande Americano on that World Collide show. Could be the main event. like an Apuestas match of some sort. They show the video of them buying AAA, the press conference or whatever. They cut to Pena and Roldan in the crowd. Then they announce Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. And Mamaw told me when this was going on, when he started talking, when he came out, she was like, "Oh, he looks drunk." And I was like, "Well, he always kind of does that weird dancing, to be honest." And then then he started talking, and she was like, "Oh, he sounds drunk." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe." Not there. Because he had this really slow cadence to announce the attendance of 41,467.
61,000.
61, yeah, 61,467. Legit number?
Remains to be seen.
We'll only know later. So they recap the Tiffany and Charlotte stuff. They say it's a controversial feud and what's going to happen in this match. Stratton's entrance, they turned the whole screen into like a Barbie dollhouse, and they have 3 like doll, boxes. The two of them, they had LED screens of Tiffany in different outfits, posing and dancing and all that. And then the middle one was the real person, and she comes out of the box and makes her Barbie entrance. What'd you think of the Barbie entrance for Tiff?
It was on brand. I thought it was cool they used those new like digital boards that they had at the UFC Sphere event, where it's like it looks like a 3D render of a person in like a box, but it's just the digital screen. I remember because there is a video of Dana White speaking Spanish welcoming people to the Sphere. But yeah, it was fucking hilarious. If you haven't seen it, look it up. But yeah, this was a cool entrance. I'm happy that they gave her something special.
And it fit her, like you said, so it was basically perfect. Suddenly that transitioned into like a skyscraper vision, and Charlotte comes out in the Rolls Royce and walks down to the ring, both in pink, to continue their feud trends of like wearing the same stuff over and over. I did see some comments online that if you're in the crowd, it was hard to tell who was who because they both wrestled the same. At one point, Charlotte did Stephanie Vaquera's thigh move. I was very offended by this.
Yeah, I was like, this feels loaded. I definitely thought that it felt like a fucking fuck you kind of thing.
It was.
Like, yeah, I'll steal your big spot. I'm Charlotte Flair.
What did Booker T think of this? This is what we need to know.
Did you not hear him? I could hear him. He was in the VIP section, and you hear him sort of from the right side of Cam, but oh,
man.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. But why? It made no sense. Why did she do that? Like, they even did shout her out on commentary though. They're like, "Hey, that's Stephanie's move," or like they're saying, "Oh no, yeah," because Cole was like, "Hey, that's Stephanie's move," and then Wade was like, "If you don't like it, you know where to go to do something about it." So, are they trying to make a feud out of that? Like, I mean, I don't know. But anyway, she locks in the crab hold, trying to put her down like a rookie. But she gets out of that. They do some spine busters with Stratton showing her buff powers as the buff Barbie. Charlotte goes up top with a big crossbody, but she tweaks her knee and immediately Stratton runs like at it and starts to hit a chop block, go after it, and then Charlotte hits a kick to the face with the good leg. They go for the figure four. Charlotte slaps her in the face. She starts beating her knee to get out of it. She looks for the prettiest moonsault ever, but she gets the knees up for that. At that point, Charlotte builds into a natural selection from the top rope and knocks one of her teeth out at the same time here. And in the end, though, she looks for the figure four, but she can't get out of that. She kicks the knee again. She hits the rolling fireman's carry, stomps her in the stomach, goes in for the prettiest moonsault ever to get the win here. And afterwards, Stratton looked like she had been in a hockey fight. She had bruises on her face. She was missing a tooth. I mean, man, I really wish that they had like done some kind of spot to emphasize that, like a shoot right hand or something, like a big spot that shows like, I hate this person for real. like this isn't a work situation. I want to hurt her because that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Like she hurt her ass. I mean, I'm not saying it was on purpose, but for whatever reason, they worked a stiff match. Stratton got hurt. Not injured, but just hurt. At the end of the day, her face was messed up. And yeah, what'd you think of the match?
How fucked up is it for me to say this was the best match on the show? Because this was the best match on the show.
And I know. I felt the same way after watching it. Yeah.
I'd go 3 3/4 on this. I'd show up and give it an 8 on Cage Match. This was such a great car crash in terms of I literally felt Tiffany having to work for her title here. Charlotte was not going to help her get to the finish in any way whatsoever. And yep. Tiffany was actively having to overcome Charlotte both in ring and in real life. Like this was a fucking mental fortitude showcase. Tiffany legit looked like she went through a war after the match. Bruise on the forehead, like you said, chipped tooth, busted lip. Like you don't get that sort of visceral realness in these types of matches usually. I thought this was better than Charlotte and Rhea from a couple years ago because it just felt more real.
Hot take, but I'm not disagreeing actually.
Like, yeah, this was a really well-worked match for as non-collaborative as it was, in the sense of, dude, during the finishing sequence, you could visibly see how much Charlotte was sandbagging Tiffany and how much Tiffany was having to literally fucking work just to get there again. And I was like, fuck, dude, it had like the energy of Shinya Hashimoto versus Takao Omori with like, God, I don't know, like just a real underdog feel. And the fact that Tiffany beat Charlotte at Mania, and you know how much that probably had to fucking destroy Charlotte. I was just like, man, this was good.
Oh,
like,
she was pissed. She immediately walked out of the ring after that finish too. It wasn't as blatant as like
an Austin Aries.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of, as an Austin Aries moment, but it was like not that far removed. She immediately rolled out and walked away. Charlotte did. She didn't sit on the outside and laugh like with Ripley. She got the fuck out of there.
Yeah, and this is a match that I will remember from this show. I can't say I'll remember anything else, but this is one that I will. Like, I'm in on Tiffany Stratton now. I think that what they wanted to do with Jey Uso, they succeeded with Tiffany Stratton.
And she, at the start of when things went off the rails for these two, it was that like split screen interview where Charlotte just ate her up and wouldn't let her talk and ruined her promo, and which is terribly unprofessional. All of this is horribly unprofessional by Charlotte. But
and it worked so well. What the fuck?
Yeah, it ended up like paying off huge when Tiffany stood up for herself on the Monday after.
Tiffany and Charlotte's feud got more coverage than I would say Cody and Cena's post-elimination chamber.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Like for sure. Like, well, I have a lot to say about that build. For sure, there's a huge, so many mistakes in that. But when she dropped that 0-3 line on SmackDown and went off the script, and you could tell that like she finally got one back on Charlotte, and hers was like better than anything Charlotte did with her like screechy voice, making fun of Tiffany's voice, talking over her, talking shit and all that stuff.
Fucking Kaiser's in my DMs pulling a Conor McGregor.
That was a pathetic excuse for a comeback. But she tried her best to save face. And at the time, that's the best.
The best part is that she used his shoot name still. Or no, she used his
Gimmick name.
wrestler name. Yeah.
It
Like,
would have been funny. She said, Axel's in my DMs.
yeah, dude, that would have been hilarious. But the fact she said Ludwig, I was like, oh my god, she's breaking the fourth wall while preserving it, which was really funny. Anyway,
But that makes it easy to feel like, okay, this probably isn't true. Like if it was the real person in the DMs, she might have used the real name. You would think on there. And then Kaiser's like, don't flatter yourself. I wouldn't put it past him. Is all I'm saying. Like he's a wrestler. I'm not taking it. I don't know anything for sure. I'm just saying we don't know what happened. But it was like a really sad kind of comeback, like somebody who just got rocked and like trying to save face but kind of failing. There. But I think Tiffany earned a lot of respect for doing that, and she gained even more from that. Nothing else. The match itself was good. The image afterwards with her with the knocked out tooth was great. Like that was a star-making move. They should plaster that all over SmackDown this week.
it was very Becky Balboa with like the busted eye.
Yeah, exactly. Like this real thing that happened. Like that, she didn't plan for her tooth to get knocked out and have her forehead busted and bruised. Like, but it happened, and it made her look amazingly strong and badass. Yep. So really, really cool stuff here. I totally agree with you. This would be my pick for the match of the show. Again, 3 3/4. I agree with your rating as well. It's got a 6.44 rating on here. I got to go against the inmates once again here. I think both of the women's matches got shortchanged by the inmates, in my opinion.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people, again, I think they should have done something like a clear spot to signify they're quote unquote not working together, like a big shoot slap to the face or something like that. Like that you could, like a little bit of a brawl that the referee has to pull apart, maybe with like real punches or something like that. But the great thing about this match is exactly what you said. Everything felt earned because it was for real, first of all. But it was like a messy, gritty, sloppy match in a good way. And I think you don't see a lot of those these days. So that's very cool. So then they show a bunch of celebrities in the crowd. We got Lily Singh here in the crowd here. They showed celebrities all night. They had George Kittle in the crowd at one point where he was talking mad shit on people. They had Dana White.
Oh yeah, Vikingo. They cut from my favorite tweet from last night that just made me absolutely die. Was John Pollock tweeting? It was just as simple as they just did a camera cut from Vikingo to Dana White.
Yeah.
That cracked me up. I was like, yep, it's just bizarro world.
He got booed. Dana White did when they showed him camera. Well, deservedly so. He's a complete asshole. But it's still. You had Rick Rubin, the former Smoky Mountain Wrestling backer in the crowd, and obviously a big record producer. Chris Angel was there. O'Shea Jackson Jr., Michael Che from SNL doing a comedy special. Jelly Roll. Lil Yachty was there. Man, Rick Rubin, did you see that beard he had on?
Oh, he's always got that beard.
That brother looked about 80 years old now on top of here. But yeah, it was like they had all these celebrities. Dana White getting booed was very funny to me. I never thought Lily Singh would be on a WWE show, but we saw it here, and I was amused by it. But then they cut in and they play this whole hype video for the main event, talking about all the Heyman stuff. And then they bring out the Hall of Famers. We get Steve Austin coming in, and then followed by Bret Hart. Their match at WrestleMania 13 got inducted. What do you think of this idea of inducting matches into the Hall of Fame?
I'm into it. It's very UFC, but like yeah. I like that they're gonna have like a fight wing. I think that yeah, I don't know. It's cool. I'm like, I think they could have retroactively added more this year or something just to kind of beef it out from the beginning. But then again, it's like, why would you do that? So never
They could have
mind.
made a whole class like of matches, like
Yeah.
first time ever inducting matches. All 8 candidates or whatever will be the best 5 matches in WrestleMania history. And this was a great choice, to be honest with you. If we were making a shoot best WrestleMania match of all time list, like this would be right on the top for most people. Although I would personally go with Bret and Owen from WrestleMania 10 as my favorite WrestleMania match of all time, to be fair. So the Hitman would get inducted, even mine, unfortunately. And
you see what he said? He said, I'm the first person to have 3 Hall of Fame rings.
Typical
Bret Hart, dude.
Typical Hitman. Listen, every Christmas, I'm about to give you guys a life hack right now. You should do what I do. Every Christmas day, we all have our traditions. My tradition is going on YouTube to watch the Bret Hart Buries the Universe video, which is like a 25-minute compilation video of Bret shitting on everybody in wrestling, pretty much. It's absolutely amazing. It's so fun. It's so entertaining, and I love it. I love the Hitman, and he will always be one of my favorites. They came out, and we got Michelle McCool up next. We got the Family of the Natural Disasters up there doing their thing. And then they did a thing for Lex Luger, but he wasn't there. I don't know why he wasn't there, but whatever. And then Triple H comes out, like gets the big pop at the end as he's known to do. There's a funny clip of him going up to Bret Hart, and Bret Hart like doesn't want to shake his hand, but then he does it anyway. So yeah, I mean, I don't really put any stock to this Hall of Fame, but to some people it's a big deal, I guess. I mean, everybody got a paycheck out of it, right? This must be the most like corporate Hall of Fame class though, with Triple H and McCool in there. Who the hell are they going to induct next year? Like they're running out of people, I think, to induct. They should have taken our idea for the all-match Hall of Fame, in my opinion. But yeah, Triple H, egomaniac, completely.
I feel like next year's got to be Cena.
What if Triple H inducts himself again?
Is Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Yes, yes, exactly. The blue
and then
blood.
the next year he's Terrorizer or whatever his name was.
Yeah, Terrorizing.
Yeah.
Do it. He will be Jean-Paul Levesque next year. Will be his next gimmick. So they come in there, talk about the main event. They talk about Seth saying the state of the business is on the line in this match, the future of the industry. If Punk or Roman win, pro wrestling will die. I don't know how he came to that conclusion, but whatever. Roman just wants to like get revenge for Punk taking Heyman. They did the angle on Raw at the end with Seth standing tall. And they come out with a big video for Punk where he's like, they intersperse segments of his debut promo on ECW where he's like, I don't do drugs, don't drink alcohol. My only addiction is wrestling. And they show clips of the old promo, and then the CM Punk now would say the same lines. They would cut back and forth between it. They played his old theme, which to me is actually his best theme. I know everyone will go with this song that he has now, but I love Killswitch Engage, and I thought that song freaking rules on there. And because I hate him so much, I hate that both of our theme songs are by the same band when the AFI theme that he had. So I refuse to acknowledge that. So the Killswitch swing was great. They showed some of his moments, like when he won the Money in the Bank back-to-back years, when he cashed in on Edge. They showed him running out of the building with Money in the Bank 2011, which a lot of people point to as like his biggest moment. And it's all led to this, him finally being in the WrestleMania main event. And he comes out in living color there. They play a song out to the ring. The lead singer like puts his phone out and like shoots a video with him while he's performing. Heyman's there. He's in good spirits, and he comes out to the ring. And they showed them both. Seth's entrance, he came out with an all-black hoodie that looked like a cult leader's robe that he had. He shot a flamethrower at the building, or at the buildings on the screen. It wasn't the real buildings. He shot a flamethrower at the screen, and the buildings burned down. Then the lights went out. He pulled the big black robe off. He was in an all-white attire afterwards. They sang a song. Roman just had a normal entrance. He just put his finger up in the air. What'd you think of the entrances of him WrestleMania? You had Roman was kind of basic. I like that they had the video screens when he walked out that had like the I don't know why family on them. You saw Yokozuna in there, the Wild Samoans, his dad. I thought that was pretty cool. Seth's entrance with the flamethrower and Punk with the video and the band.
Yeah, it set up that big fight feel. I really wish that they would have hammered more into this state of pro wrestling and the future of it versus Paul Heyman in this story.
100% agree.
Going in, you just didn't feel those stakes that Seth described. It was all centered on this Paul Heyman element. And I'm not a Paul Heyman fan. I'm a generational Paul Heyman hater. I do not think he's that special of a promo. I really don't like his voice. I think he's very one note and repetitive. Like his tribal council, whatever the fuck, character has been the same exact for the past 5 years. His Brock Lesnar character was the same exact one for the number of years. He plays, once he finds something, he just plays it to death, and it's really not for me. So to have him be like the focus of the WrestleMania main event, I thought was just really lame. And it felt really lame that these three guys are fighting over this old man. Say what you will about him being the wise man and getting people world championships and setting them up for these things. But he's just, it's lame. It feels like Game of Thrones shit in terms of I don't know, all these dudes just fighting for some old wise guy. Just
and a poor man's version of Game of Thrones. This was like season 8 version.
Yes.
Of Game of Thrones. There were numerous issues with this feud. I totally agree with you about Heyman. I thought Heyman, like the old school in WCW as a manager, ECW, he was good at that. I thought he was good as his SmackDown GM run. That was kind of short-lived, but the original, Brock deal with him, he was good at that. Ever since he's returned, I totally agree with you. I think he's a very bad performer, actually. And it showed. Look at his spot. Go back and watch the end with him. The only defense you're going to hear for him is that, it doesn't matter. The fans didn't care because they popped anyway. But if you look at what he actually did, his spots, he mistimed them so much. He basically gave his turns away a minute before he actually did it because he wasn't capable of making a quick move. I don't know why he did it. He's such a cartoon character, sounding the same catchphrases over and over. Yes, my tribal chief. Yes, my tribal chief. Yes, my tribal chief. Same crap over and over. Such a one-note character. And him as a manager, he doesn't even actually do that much of anything. He doesn't interfere in matches. He doesn't make things happen. He's just an old man at this point. Who is most known for conning everyone for a decade out of their money and ruining everyone's life that was in ECW at that point. So that build sucks. Secondly, all three guys felt like they were working different feuds in the same match. The first problem is that it's a triple threat match and not a singles match, which is what it should have been in the main event. They could have any version of these three. You could have told a much better and more cohesive story. In this one, you had Seth talking about the future of the business. You had Roman pissed at Seth because of the Shield stuff 10 years ago, which they've really hit on the head the last couple of weeks. Like they kicked that into overdrive on the Raw go home angle and heavy in this match. You have Punk worried about Heyman and his favor. All of these different feuds, and none of them are extremely cohesive. But they came out. Punk came out with this hoodie on that had like a stain from a sandwich he got on the shoulder. I think he didn't even bother washing his hoodie. I wonder if Punk's heart was in this. Like, even though it was the main event, and that's what he wanted, when he came out with that dirty hoodie, like, I wonder if that was a sign that he didn't give a fuck about this, and he thinks creative stuff.
The story behind it is it's the same hoodie he wore the night he fought Undertaker at Mania when he thought he should have been in the main event.
Oh, okay.
So it is a callback.
Okay, we saw some multiple callbacks on this show, and in this match specifically. So, I will say this. They go off early on. Punk immediately rolls out of the ring, talks to Heyman. Heyman shakes his, he's quivering and be like, well, here's what you need to do, type of deal. Because he knows Roman's pissed at him. Roman ends up hitting the drive-by at one point on Seth. He's yelling at Heyman on the outside. Rollins and Punk brawl on the floor. They brawl into the crowd. They go all over the place. Seth wallops Punk with this trash can a couple of times. Punk threw a garbage can at his head. He suplexed him on the trash can. It leads to the big spot of Roman hitting a Superman dive over the barricade onto both Punk and Seth, and even clipping a couple of fans, I think, on the way with his hand. They do a lot of three-way spots and stuff like that. We see a Doomsday device hit after Reigns pulls Seth on the shoulders and Punk comes down with a clothesline. At one point, Punk looks for the Anaconda device, but that gets broken up and Seth goes on a tear with buckle bombs to everybody. And they go back and forth. Roman looks for a spear, but Seth counters that right into the pedigree in midair. He's done that before. That was a great near fall. Seth and Punk start to brawl, but Roman gets a spear. It looked great on Seth when Punk dodged out of the way. The first spear he had on Seth, it looked devastating. But Punk had to go to sleep and he got a near fall on Roman. The crowd popped big for this, and I will say this. The crowd was really up for this, especially with these three-way spots. They really kind of made this feel like the actual main event on the show, even though in a lot of ways I don't think it was a worthy one. And I think the build was really lame. I agree with everything you said. But I do think also the crowd really bit in onto these three fighting. And that was the only way this match could succeed at the end of the way. He ends up hitting a pedigree on Punk for a 2 count. And Seth walks over to Roman. And he's like, "You're all alone." And we got into our mid-match monologue, which I hate so much in these Roman matches. He's like, "You're all alone. You don't have me anymore. You don't have Paul Heyman anymore. You don't have Moxley anymore. You don't have the bloodline, and you need me to think for you." And he's like, he said, "Punk does not belong in this main event." And so he wipes out the table, sets up Roman to hit the shield bomb on Punk. And Roman's like, lift his ass up. The crowd's popping. They're loving this Shield reunion. He does the ooh-wah, which Punk mocked earlier, too, in the match. And then he uppercuts Seth and powerbombs Seth through the table, or powerbombs Punk through the table on his own. He goes over to Seth and then powerbombs him through the other table. So both tables get it. Roman yells at Heyman, and he locks in the guillotine choke on Punk. And he goes back and forth with Seth. Punk looks for the Anaconda device, but he breaks it up with a big frog splash onto both men. And he looks for the sharpshooter on Punk, only for Roman to counter into another guillotine. Reigns spears Punk, but then Seth stomps him, and all three men are down after hitting their finishers. The crowd give a standing ovation to this. It was really well timed. I do have to admit that. And then suddenly they cut from them all three down to Heyman on the outside. And they waste like 2 minutes straight of Heyman looking at the steel chair as he slowly walks to the ring. And he ends up like going back and forth, like, who am I going to give this chair to between Roman and Punk? He wags his finger at Roman and slides the chair to Punk. Punk laughs maniacally with the chair. And he's like, yes, we're real friends. And then Heyman's like, yeah, get him, Punk. Like, you're my best friend. And as soon as he looks for the chair, Heyman drops to his knees, hits the low blow on Punk. The crowd popped huge for this. Heyman back with the tribal chief. Roman gives a big, teethy, fake smile that he has, and he loves this. He stands up with the chair and just destroys Punk with the chair, blasts him over and over. And then Seth's on the other side of the ring, and Heyman's like, look, my tribal chief. Look, it's the Shield. It's yours. There he is. Get him. So Roman's like, oh, hell yeah. Like, I can finally get revenge for that chair shot 10 years ago. And as soon as he winds up, Heyman drops to his knees, hits a low blow on Roman. Seth stands up, and he holds out his hand like he knew it was happening all along. Heyman hands him the chair. He kisses the chair, hits the Shield chair shot, hits the stomp on Roman, and gets the 3 count to end WrestleMania 41's Night 1 main event in 32 minutes and 39 seconds. Michael Cole is acting outraged over this, and he's like, Seth sold his soul. Heyman's a damn snake. I hope you die, Seth. I can't believe you did this and betrayed Punk and Roman. And, I mean, the crowd went nuts for this. Like, they didn't treat this like a heel turn at all, even though immediately Seth acts different. He has that catatonic look. He shoves the ref away. He's like, don't touch me. And in the end, he gives his Messiah pose at the end. And Heyman praises him as the show goes off the air to end the match. 8.85 rating based on 464 votes. What did you think of this main event triple threat match? Are you muted?
I was. My apologies. Okay. Story wasn't for me. I did not like the focus on Paul Heyman at all. I don't like how much he factored into the finish where you have like 3 of the strongest guys. And again, it's like this little old man that's like choosing like what the finish is. I don't know. It's just pretty weak to me. There were some good spots throughout. I liked when Roman did the Shield power bombs on his own through the 2 tables. Like you said, when all 3 hit their finishers, Seth coming off the ropes, hitting the stomp. That was nice. Some pretty ugly parts, I thought, like Punk transitioning from the guillotine into the anaconda vice. It felt like he didn't know where to go, and Roman essentially had to put himself in position for it. And yeah, the dramatics aren't super for me. With all of the dramatics and all of the story stuff that was in this match, it honestly made me think, and this will probably, like, everyone will disagree with me on this, but why wasn't this the main event of your Raw After Mania? Because Raw After Mania is so big now, it's on Netflix. And like, if you wanted to do a picture of a go home after that, like, that's what this felt like, was like the end of Raw to me, not the end of Mania, because there was no title at stake. There was really nothing at stake except for this little old man, and it was an angle. This whole match was centered around an angle.
And not even a good one, ultimately, is the main problem. Like you said, the prize for this is Paul Heyman in 2025. Like, is that really worth it? I mean, the fans, this worked for them. This was the match that they were really, this was like the one match that felt like a WrestleMania match to this bad crowd. in my opinion. They loved it. They thought it was as great of a turn. Again, they didn't treat anyone as a heel. Like, they rallied behind all three guys in their own ways, too. They were all three baby faces coming in. And I think that deserves some praise at the end of the day, where it could have gone in a lot of ways. But I just thought there was a lot. The stuff where Seth was yelling at Roman and Roman was yelling at Punk and Heyman was involved, all of that cinema, quote unquote, sucked, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of any of that. And I think half of it wasn't even well done. Again, look at how long it took Heyman to get in position for a lot of his stuff. And I don't think it was a stylistic choice. Like you said, good point on the Punk and Roman awkward exchange. I thought much of the match, when they got into it, like the high impact stuff, it worked really well. And I think, again, we're taking something me and you don't actually care about that much. But I think for their story and for their fans, Heyman teaming with Seth was the right call. Just because the other two we've already seen before. They're both old hat. And it feels like Seth is now going to be the top heel on Raw. And as you said, I think him getting that world title from Jay is basically a foregone conclusion at this point. And I think that's a good idea to have Heyman around, Seth, help him with his promos and all that. Are they ready to change that song if they really want him to be a heel heat guy? Because the fans are going to go with the song no matter what at the end of the day. Like, if they're serious about that, that's got to go. And I don't know if they would want to do that because it gets one of the loudest reactions, as cheesy as that might be. Going to the inmates here, we've had a fair amount. It's got an 8.85. We got over 160 10 out of 10 votes. I'll read the latest 10 out of 10 here. Some guy writes, unbelievable main event for the first night of WrestleMania. This had a big fight feel from the entrances to the finish. Although the story involving Heyman took the center stage during the build, once it got down to the actual wrestling, all three guys delivered. CM Punk waited a long time for this, and you could tell how happy he was to be there. Rollins and Roman have done everything there is to do at WrestleMania, but they treated this like the biggest match of their careers. So many storytelling moments, big spots, finishers, near falls, and a meaningful ending. Yes, it was overindulgent, but that's what you want from a WrestleMania main event. Everyone was great and had their moments in the spotlight, but I thought Roman was incredible with his acting, his selling, and his ability to kick out at the last possible moment, elevated the match several times. The finish was, of course, what everyone will talk about, with Paul Heyman turning on both Punk and Roman to side with Rollins. Heyman perfectly sold it, and he came across like such a slimy scumbag doing what he did. Rollins winning made the most sense with the story being told as things got a lot more interesting. 10 out of 10. And on the other end, we do have some low ratings too. Like, we're not the only ones who didn't love this. Aaron Carr writes, this match is to cinema as Triple H is to humility. Three-way matches inherently suck, and this match was a perfect example of why. They're always a cheap gimmick to force another name into the match, following the theory that more wrestlers equal better match. The logic never makes sense with how DQs are somehow allowed, simply because there's an extra competitor involved, which always renders the bulk of the match worthless whenever the weapon shots come out at the end. These matches also always follow the exact same structure of one guy getting isolated outside while the other two face off inside, and then the wrestlers robotically cycle around so that each pairing gets time. You'll also get really cheesy, convenient multi-man spots and sequences, which always require so much cooperation, or at the very least a massive helping of luck, to the point of absurdity. And you always know you should never bother buying into any of the near falls, because it's guaranteed 99% of them will be broken up by whoever had their turn lying down outside, with them conveniently running back in just in time to break up the pin. All these issues applied here, just as I predicted, but WWE made sure to make the match that much worse with their usual awful ideas of what makes a match epic. Their match got off on the wrong foot right away, as it quickly spilled to the outside in a messy brawl. It pops the live crowd because they get the novelty of seeing their beloved stars fighting up close, but that doesn't mean much when that fighting is mostly just lethargic strikes and soft-looking weapon attacks and prop spots. Like clockwork, all the obviously cooperative and conveniently set up multi-man spots and sequences came out one after the other as soon as the match returned to the ring. Punk still looks so immensely unathletic and uncoordinated every time he attempts to move around with speed or act with any intensity. He's never been any sort of athlete, but at this stage in his career, it's getting even worse. At least Rollins can do some relatively athletic stuff every now and then, and Roman can display some really good power at times. But Punk has little aside from his ability to talk and I guess some of his selling. The run-on finisher spam was the least interesting but most predictable portion of the match, given it's the only way WWE knows how to build drama, even if it's always completely forced and hollow. The finishers just kept coming, and so did the near falls. None of it meant anything at all, especially with how outright and repetitive no selling there was. It felt like it must have lasted 20 minutes total, and I'm not even sure I'm exaggerating. Of course, it also wouldn't be a big WWE match without some hokey soap opera acting, like the dorky cutscene with Rollins' mid-match promo, Roman's melodramatic, conflicted struggle as to whether to side with Rollins, and Heyman's infinitely more melodramatic struggle as he teased choosing a guy to side with. Heyman was really the worst part of this match, with all of his hilariously goofy expressions, which we were somehow meant to take as a seriously dramatic moment.
Yeah.
The guy is just an absolute buffoon with how he goes 120% over the top every single time he's on camera, always making the loudest poses, gestures, and expressions possible. It's always like he's giving the worst Shakespearean performance imaginable in both content and delivery. His turn as he sided with Rollins wasn't even interesting, because it was literally the only one that made any dramatic sense anyways, given he'd already sided with both Roman and Punk previously. I said that myself, in fact. So obviously WWE would figure that the only real drama could come from a fresh alliance with Rollins, but then that was so predictable as to not actually be remotely interesting. I'm shocked that anyone would be shocked by this. Heyman continued to soak up the spotlight in the worst way throughout that entire final segment, even to the point of spelling out the story for everyone with his dialogue. Nothing reminds me of how unserious wrestling is, like a WWE patented attempt at storytelling. Also, I've just got to love the logic that all of these guys can pop up from a million finishers from anywhere between 1 and 20 seconds later, but then Punk was kept down for a straight 2 minutes, unable to break up Seth's pin on Roman despite being maybe only 2 meters away, after just a single low blow and a few chair shots to the safe part of the back. Surely Roman, Rollins, and Heyman filled up enough time with their acting that Punk could have recovered in that time. Anyways, this was quite a dumb and unintelligent match. I guess it was at least well executed for the style they went for, and some moments were okay or even mildly good in isolation. But as a whole package, it was very mindless and cheap. 2 stars, 4 out of 10. Well said. I would say in that one, to be honest with you.
I'd land on a 5. I'd go 5 on this match.
I think it's hard to take away the crowd reaction. I think, again, it's one of those matches where I personally did not like this, but I think they accomplished what they actually wanted to for it. So I will give this a 6 out of 10. I think there was good and bad parts to it, but ultimately for this audience, they succeeded. For the audience of me, I didn't personally think this was a great match at all. Yep. At the end of the day. But yeah, overall, I thought it's got a 5.77 rating on Cage Match right now, the show overall. And I think in a lot of ways we should hold WrestleMania to a higher standard, in my opinion. This is their biggest show of the year, even if it's split into 2 nights. I would recommend both of the women's matches. And that's it. Really, probably personally. I think both of those are worth watching. And I think that closing image of Tiffany, like so beat up, was amazing.
Yep. Agreed.
I think, yeah, and that would be it. Everything else was okay. I thought that the first match was actively bad, and I thought the tag match was just very boring and uninteresting. Everything else had good to it. The Fatu, LA Knight, Grande and Phoenix, and the main event, but they were not anything I personally would say is special. I would give this about a 6 out of 10 show, to be honest with you. I agree with the inmates almost to the T. But in a lot of ways, I think it should be more like a 5 because it is WrestleMania as well. Like, the fans deserved better. I don't even think there was that much spectacle. I mean, the Tiffany entrance was cool. Like, they put a lot into the Punk entrance with the band and everything. But they weren't anything we haven't seen before either. They weren't like super great entrances either.
This felt like a night one, which is to say that night two feels like the main event show now of the weekend, which is like funny because Punk just did his first main event, but it's a night one main event. You know what I'm saying? Like they've clearly, like historically, they've structured their shows to where night two is the bigger night. Like just look at last year, right? They had a literal build to night two in the night one main event. So I'm excited for tonight more than I was yesterday, just because I feel like there's a lot more stakes.
Yeah.
You know, a lot more stuff where I don't necessarily know what's going to happen. So I'm excited for the surprises. I'm excited to see who walks out as champion and to see where we're going post Mania.
Yep, absolutely. So overall, it was an okay show, and one that we weren't really hyped for. There's just been a lot of bad stuff going on with this company lately. Like some bad PR that's got everyone a little weary. And I don't think this show really did a lot to, like, wow us.
Now I think it's time we move on to night 2, and so much to talk about.
Same as last night, Allegiant Stadium. This time, 63,226 fans, as they told us, as Stone Cold told us when he was not wrecking out his 4x4 at one point. You know, we talked about it, and we actually finished recording our show on night one, basically an hour or so before this show started. So the first question, I think what everybody needs to know most importantly is, did you get the pizza?
I did get the pizza. Yes.
Finally, you came through in the clutch to get the pizza. You had the sandwich last night, but you could not rest without the pizza. A wonderful pizza. This is an Italian weekend with the sandwich, with the pizza. You lived your best life, and I appreciate that very much.
Had to. Thank you for the support.
I absolutely did. I had some leftover Easter dinner that was cooked. We had some ham and potatoes, some cornbread. You can tell that I am from the South, my friends. I would say pretty clearly there. But much like last night, myself and my grandma watched, and you know, Mama just she absolutely loved the night one main event. It was a tale of two shows in a lot of ways. She was really down on a lot of the earlier going of the night, but she absolutely loved the main event. We kind of had the same feelings of night one until the main event. She liked a lot better than us. She was happy because Seth is like her favorite guy, so she was happy that he won, pretty much. But going into this show, there was a lot going on into it, and I definitely think this was the show that had the more stacked card of the two on paper. Definitely in terms of star power and all of that. So, you know, they went on. They had Ava Max come out singing the national anthem. I have to say, like I said, I missed the Jelly Roll song from night one, but I guarantee this was better than whatever he did. She actually sang it very well, I do have to say. So off to a good start there. Show starts off with a triple threat match for the women's world title. Io Sky coming out first. She had a new Titantron, but was basically the same entrance. Oh, well, no. The first thing we would have to mention is that the show started much like her husband, Stephanie McMahon, getting the opening night pop here, where she kind of basic promo saying, "Oh, WWE is my family. I'm all about family. Like when I was 16, I was at WrestleMania 9, and now my daughter is 16 and she's here at WrestleMania. So welcome to WrestleMania." No one can get the first pop of a night in this family, clearly, on this company. So start off with Io with her normal entrance. Bianca came out. A bunch of girls came out, including her stepdaughter. Um, they were all dressed like her. Some of them were doing jump ropes and stuff like that. She came into some heavy boos at the start, which makes no sense in their current storyline, but whatever. Rhea Ripley came out to a big pop. She had a bright red lipstick on, but otherwise, she had like a helmet on at first that she took off, but otherwise a pretty normal entrance. What'd you think of the Bianca entrance with the jump rope and everything? I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, agreed. It was cool. It seemed like they had more themed entrances tonight, which was exciting.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts of these shows. You want to make WrestleMania is meant to be a spectacle at the end of the day. So they start off replaying the angle from before. Ripley and Bianca argue, and Io's like, "Hey, don't forget about me." And they both try to push her away, but she counters, smacks Rhea upside the head, tries to smack Bianca, but Bianca ducks this time, playing off their angle from Raw. They go into the corner. Bianca's fired up. Io hits like a double blockbuster, both coming in, and Bianca counters it. There's a lot of action here. Really high-paced match, I would say. Ripley ends up hitting a cannonball off the apron, but then Io hits a big acai moonsault after the jump up from the bottom rope to the middle rope. Bianca does a 3-time suplex. She ends up doing some power spots, big stuff there. Ripley ends up hitting the Razor's Edge on Io, but threw her into Bianca, like a double team move. Ripley locked in the prison trap, but Bianca countered that, looked for the KOD. But in the end, Io broke it up with some big bullet train attacks to both. Bianca gets some leverage, hits a 450 splash, but Ripley runs in and hits the Riptide on Bianca for a near fall. She looks for a Riptide on Io, but Io countered that into a Tornado DDT. They go up where Bianca and Rhea have like this big stare down, and Ripley just smacks the shit out of her. Pretty much, like that's a big heat spot. We saw things get more and more heated between Bianca and Rhea as the match went along, and in the end, they both went up. There's a spot where Io was on top, but Ripley ended up. Io looked for an inverted Poison Rana from the top rope, but Rhea caught her and hit an inverted Alabama Slam into the steel post. Looked great, but in the end, Bianca hit the Kiss of Death on Rhea. Io hit the over the moonsault onto both, pinned Bianca for the 3, and got the win here. And it was a match that, again, had very good pacing. They worked really hard. 9.22 rating on Cage Match for 14 minutes and 26 seconds. I think a little strong. I expect this rating to come down, but it was a very good opener, and I think a big part of why this is getting a lot of love is because compared to the first night's opener, and I think this is a world of difference overall. What did you think of the match?
This was probably my favorite match of WrestleMania. This was a great triple threat that felt like it had real stakes, malice behind the offense. Mm-hmm. I loved it, go like 4.25, 4.5, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, the inmates are not too far off when you think about it. Overall, how about that? I can definitely get behind that for sure, and I think that they deserve, a lot of credit for doing, having a match this good at the opener, especially after a lot of the criticisms of night one. They had a hell of a match. I would go 4.25, 4.5 too. I thought it was a little high, but when we went over it, when we talked about it, I thought it was really well done. I thought the finish was a little bit surprising. I think that I personally thought Bianca was going to win due to the teased heel turn stuff that they've had recently. And I thought that would make the most sense to lead to a big one-on-one showdown between Bianca and Rhea. But actually, I think you could spin off of this and have Rhea and Bianca have a non-titles feud. Like, let them have some kind of grudge match or build into it. With Io, you've got some heels freed up with Liv and Raquel. You could build to a backlash match for one of them. You could do a lot of different things overall. So I think the booking made sense. Very happy. Even though I was surprised, I think it was the right winner for Io. And the match was great. All three of these are some of the best women's wrestlers, especially Io and Bianca, I would say. So a great start to the show, as you said. Definitely made up. I thought it was better than anything on night one overall for sure. So yeah, I mean overall, I think this would be my favorite match too. They deserve a lot of credit here. And not too long, it didn't overstay its welcome. Everything looked good, and as you said, the characters got over. It felt like a heated show, and it was a really well done match. So then they talk about the issues between Priest and Drew on SmackDown. They show a video for that to set up the Sin City street fight. Drew comes out with this stone that, like, we're not really sure what this was supposed to be. I don't think.
So it's like key asset art from Doom: The Dark Ages.
Okay.
So you have the Doomslayer helmet and shield on the stone. I recognized it, and then I immediately groaned and I went, okay, so there's this is the other product placement at a match, yeah.
Yeah, every match is a sponsorship. What about Priest? Kerry King comes out from Slayer, who does play his theme song.
Yeah, that was actually pretty sick, I will say.
Yeah, I mean he was going crazy at the start of it. And then they just kind of played his regular theme over it. For there, but he was jamming out. Priest was loving it. He got in the ring, showed the guns, the metal horns, and like they had it was a pretty epic entrance, to be honest with you. Like this song, in all seriousness, that he has is a pretty badass song. Like entrance thing. Like it looked even better when he was doing it, when Kerry was doing it. But this was a great theme song that they put together for him. With him kind of ad-libbing over it, it's a good vibe. So Drew attacks right away, but they brawl to the outside. They go up to the ramp. There's a suplex on the ramp. They throw him into the barricade. Tables come out early. Priest pulls out a table. Drew pulls out 2 tables. They're fighting with the steel stairs, Drew, Priest hits him first. He throws the steps at Drew. And then eventually Drew gets the steps, smashes him into the side of the head, hits him in the back with the stairs, going crazy. And then Drew goes up to his brother in the crowd, gives him his cell phone, and sits down and takes the cell phone with the deuces, just like the grave photo he edited on CM Punk. that became a meme. So he took a selfie in the middle of the street fight. Pretty charming there. They fight with a chair. Drew bops Damian with the chair at one point. They go up. Drew hits the clothesline over the top. Hits a big flick dive on the outside. Everybody's going crazy. Drew looks for the Claymore, but Priest hits him with a chair, and then Drew just hits him with the Claymore anyway. After that, he wraps the chair around Priest's neck and looks for the Claymore again. But he counters that with a choke, like a one-handed choke slam there, which would have been devastating if he'd hit that Claymore. He looks for the South of Heaven choke slam on the steps, but Drew counters that, hits the Future Shock on the steps, and hurts himself more clearly than Priest. His back gets cut up from this. We see the blood off of his back off of that. Damian looks for the old school, but then Drew shoves him off the top into both tables. He ends up getting Priest back into the ring, sets up a chair in the corner. There was a chair set up in the corner by Priest, actually. And Drew put his head in front of the chair. Drew hit the Claymore into the chair in the corner. He got the win. I thought that was an excellent finish, to be honest with you. It looked devastating. This whole match, I thought, was a banger, to be honest. It was the kind of match you would expect if Sheamus was on the show. I thought these two kind of fulfilled that role. And this was right up there for me. I thought this was a great match, too. It just didn't have the stakes of the opener. What did you think?
Yeah, I think you hit all the points. This was a good match. I liked the physicality. I liked the immediacy of Damian Priest laying on the offense. This, again, like, for me, it's the amount of malice, of realism that is imbued into the match. And I thought that they captured a really great amount here. The Mimi part with Drew and his phone was funny. And yeah, no, I absolutely love the finish. It looked devastating. It reminded me of something we saw from the Collective, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, they got
creative. I think if you're doing like a crazy street fight, then that's probably a good sign.
Yeah, and they definitely got creative with some spots. Didn't hold back on anything. They worked well together. Just two big badass guys who can move and do good things. And they just had a really good match overall. Like I said, I wish that it had been more. Like it meant more overall. You know, like if they'd had a title on the line or something like that, you know, I think this would have meant even more. But I thought it was really good. It's got an 8 out of 10 straight up cage match right now. The inmates have spoken on that. And I think it's, that's a well-deserved rating. Definitely, I would say 4.25 here for me. I have it just below the opening. So then, yeah.
I'd go like 3 3/4 on that one.
Yeah, like we're in that same range. It was a great match overall. They big up things going on here. They're talking about all kinds of stuff. You know, they bring up what happened last night. They show a replay of some of the big moments from night one, and they talk about how this IC title, you know, what was going to happen with the Judgment members. That was really the big story of this match, more than even the champion or Penta. It was all about the Judgment Day. That's what it came down to. So you had the Fatal 4-Way match for the Intercontinental title. Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor from the Judgment Day, as well as Penta and Braun Breaker. So this was for the IC title. The crowd starts off. You know, they kind of give a good reaction to everybody except Finn, pretty much. They all go out with basically Finn and Dominic team up early on to take out the other two. Penta fires back. He kind of gets the edge on the outside, and then Breaker hits a huge spear on Penta, like pretty much right away early on. There were some spots where Penta went for some jumps and dives on Braun, but Braun caught him and hit him with big slams right away. He was throwing Penta around. He started to throw Finn around. Everybody's got stacked up in the corner. And then at one point, Braun hits a double German suplex on both Penta and Finn. And then hit a double suplex on both Finn and Ray. Carlito came out of ringside, apple in hand. They end up going to the outside, and then they do this big tease where Finn's looking to the outside, and Dominic's behind him smiling. And you can see the crowd start to fire up because they know he's about to turn on him. Then he does hit the drop kick from behind, goes for the 619, but Finn catches him, and he's pissed. He's like, what the... Dominic tries to beg off, but he drops him right away, stomps a mud hole in him, pretty much. Then Penta comes up from behind him, hits the Penta driver, with Braun breaking it up. But Braun's about to fire up and go for a spear, but Carlito pulled the rope down, so he flew to the outside. Penta ended up hitting Dominic with the Mexican Destroyer, but then Carlito pulled Penta out of the ring to interfere again. They brawled onto the table. Breaker climbed up to the other table, leapt from one table to the other to spear Braun at the end. And then he got in the ring to hit Penta with a spear. But then Dominic hit the 619 on Braun and went up top. But Finn knocked him off and crotched him on the top rope. That was a good payoff to what had happened on Raw with Dominic doing that to Finn accidentally. Finn puts Braun into the drop zone. He hits the coup de grace, but Dominic hits the frog splash on Finn, gets the 3 and the IC title. And this crowd, it was only a 10.5-minute match, which it felt longer. It felt like they had more to do in it. But this crowd gave Dominic a hero's welcome. And I feel like we reached the full circle moment with him finally getting accepted from the fans, him getting a title, and now he is like a real wrestler once again. That's kind of like the story of a boy becoming a man in the most ass way possible in a lot of ways. But the crowd absolutely loved it. What did you think of this?
I was, like throughout the match, I was like, this crowd really wants Dominic to win. And then I was like, oh, that's a bummer because he was probably 4th place in terms of people who I thought would walk out with the title.
Yeah.
Like I 100% thought he was the fall guy. So I was pretty shocked. Felt good. Like, I don't know. I fuck with Dominic. He's funny. I like him. We're chicken tender homies. So
facts. Hard agree on that.
Yep. Right. And I thought that this was a good match. Again, like a little bit of multi-man fatigue at this point because we had just seen the triple threat, and then after Stand and Deliver, the triple threat the night before, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, we've made this complaint. It's been a common, like, reoccurring screw up that they made.
Yes, and I didn't think that there was like any new ripples in the formula here, if I was to say. So I'd go like 6 on this one.
Yeah, it's got a 7.81 rating, but I think a lot of that is because of the finish. Like, Dominic winning was something that I think a lot of people thought would be cool, but they didn't think it would happen, and then it happened. And he got a huge welcome. He ended up, like, at one point, like, he did the thing where he walked up the ramp and Finn looks pissed in the ring. And then when he got out, Dominic ran past him to run back into the ring to pose again with the title. He got another ovation. It was a perfect, like, win for, like, a total chicken shit heel who finally gets his moment of glory. Like, this works. It feels like, he's been one of those guys that have been a true workhorse, like, in his own way. Like, not as a great wrestler in ring by any means, but by playing his role as good as he's played it, like, he ended up winning the fans' respect after being the most hated guy. And like I said, it feels like a full circle moment and a logical babyface turn pretty much for him. So we'll see what happens. I fully expect him to get dropped out of Judgment Day, like, very soon. Because I think that they're just going to roll with this babyface stuff. He's been a likable character for a little while now. Again, in an ass way, no doubt about that. But I just think it works at the end of the day. I remember that interview he did with Logan Paul's show, where, like, he got over online because, like, he was constantly, like, trying to goad Logan Paul into going to Japan. And Logan Paul was like, no, I don't go to Japan. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. And he's like, oh, it's a great company. You should go. A great country. You should go there. And he was, like, really making Logan Paul super uncomfortable and fucking up his whole show. And everyone loved it.
That was hilarious. Yeah.
Yes, it was. It was like a total soul of a troll. And we respect Dominic. But as a match, I really agree with you. I didn't think this was that special, to be honest. Like, it was a cool finish that he got to win, um, but like you said, they really didn't do anything special here. It would have been better as a singles match probably, but then you couldn't have gotten Dominic winning, so it all worked out overall. So they go on and on, where they talk about, like, this is going to be his 20th anniversary match, even though it's not actually his anniversary, it's his 20th overall match, but whatever, at WrestleMania. Owens is out with a neck injury, so he has to face a mystery man. So before we get into who it actually was, did you have any ideas on who this would be? Because I thought it should have been Nick Aldis, personally.
Oh, I thought Rusev or someone that was going to return.
That was my second choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely did not think Joe Hendry.
I did not think this at all. So he comes out. He got a pretty big pop, to be honest with you, when he came out. The crowd was waving their hands. They had a great camera shot of everybody doing it along with his entrance. You get the TNA World Champion at WrestleMania. Imagine saying that 15 years ago here. So he comes in. He immediately goes, Orton immediately goes for the RKO, but Henry counters that right away. They do some back and forth stuff. They do a lot of Hendry's key spots at the end of the day. They do the "We Will Rock You" stomps. He ends up hitting the fallaway slam into the kip up. He does his big pose, turns around and smiles, and immediately Orton flashes onto the screen for an RKO for the win. Orton shows him respect afterwards, raises his hand, lets him get a big pop in a nice moment, and then hits another RKO to drop him. and then mocks his big pose, turns around just like Henry, and then strikes his pose for his 20th anniversary. So Orton gets the win. Only 3 minutes and 10 seconds, so no ratings. But what do you think?
So a lot of people, I feel like, will defend this by saying Joe Hendry got a big WrestleMania spot. But like, to the uneducated, this guy just got squashed big time.
The world champion.
Yeah, and there were rumors recently of a Joe Hendry program with The Miz that was scrapped because it would require Joe Hendry to take a loss. So I'm really wondering what the conversation for this one was like, because this is supposed to be a partnership with another company, and you just jobbed their world champion in 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I'm like, yeah, there's maybe psychology of like, oh, well, Hendry was so swept up in the moment. He was focusing on doing his stuff and then got caught by the Viper. Okay, still looks like a geek. This is Geek City, Geek Central.
Totally.
And I thought that this is like cool for the people who get it, but I feel like has no long-lasting value.
I think if Hendry wasn't the champion, I would be fine with this. Because at his core, he's basically a meme wrestler. Like, nobody thinks he's this like epic wrestler. He's the guy who writes funny songs about people. And he's great at that, don't get me wrong. His song on AJ Francis to the tune of AJ's TNA theme song, absolutely hilarious, making fun of his terrible dives. Like, he's great at that. And he's a decent, like, okay, if he were in WWE in 2009, he would be considered like a good worker, I think. In 2025, he's got like it's like when they put him and Paige together in NXT. Like, it was like a mirror match to me. Like two super average dudes, like who have a certain look and have some charisma, but he's not world championship caliber in my opinion. But the fact is, he's the world champion. Therefore, they should have owed it to themselves to protect him a lot more. Like, was it worth getting your title on this show to have him lose so fast and look like a geek? Because he even ate an RKO after the match. Like, they couldn't leave well enough alone.
Yep.
Like, they had to do it in typical Triple H and WWE fashion to, like, set up this big partnership. That said, I can also see why they just like, oh man. Because let's be honest, Hendry adds nothing on WWE side on his own. You know, like, it's not like he's any kind of draw to their fans, with all due respect to him. So they do give him a WrestleMania spot in front of 60,000 people at the end. And he got to do his entrance, which was what they really probably wanted most. You can guarantee on Impact they're going to play some video that's edited down to make it seem like they show his entrance, 60,000 people going crazy for him, and edit it to where maybe showing his highlights, and then maybe the spot at the end with the RKO. So they probably don't even care. But to me, I would have rather it have been Nick Aldis because the storyline would have called for it. You could have hyped him up as the NWA champion formerly, and then a loss to him wouldn't have mattered because he's the GM. Like, you know, because he could have had a few hope spots and looked good and it would have been fine. And maybe they didn't want to go long on this show, even though they ended 20 minutes before the top of the hour. They could have gone long if they wanted, but, you know, it is what it is. So they played this long hype video for Logan Paul and AJ Styles, where they have like this sounds like the old TNA voiceover guy, James Earl Jones guy that TNA had. He does this long like hype video where he's saying all of this epic stuff and rhyming. And he's like, at the end there, he's like, this is the battle. One for fame, one for passion. One will rise, one will fall. This is the tale of AJ Styles and Logan Paul. So, yeah, Logan comes in with his own drone. They have like 8 screens of him on here. He walks over to the people in the crowd on the stage. Like, we praised that last night. How they set up the stage with the fans on it. And they're all booing and giving him middle fingers and stuff. He's all like, they don't mean that. They don't mean that. So he comes in, sets the drone into the corner. AJ has a normal entrance, gets some pyro. But they come in. They go outside. Logan Paul tries to do a basement drop kick to the outside. But AJ puts him under the ring a la Finley and beats the shit out of him, which is very nice. AJ was throwing them all around. Logan got the advantage to sending him into the steel post on the outside. Hits a plancha and brags about it, like goes up to the crowd and stuff. Logan copies the same spot that AJ did, pulls him under the ring skirt and chokes him with it a little bit. He triggers the drone to fly, and right when it flies right across him, he hits his big frog splash for a near fall. I thought this was kind of cool because I like that they did a different camera angle than their normal shot overall. So I thought this was actually a cool little idea here. Logan hit the alley-oop, which they called the overbomb here for a near fall. He hits a leg drop and poses like Hulk Hogan. Gets some heat. He looks for this, a fight, but Styles ends up hitting this awesome brain buster for a near fall. Logan hits the rolling senton. I've seen like 5 people do this rolling senton move in these 2 WrestleMania shows. He hits this lion salt where he flies through like way across the ring, which was athletically impressive for sure there. He hits the buckshot lariat, which Pat McAfee calls the buckshot lariat here. after Cole tried to call it a somersault lariat, he actually calls it the buckshot. So there is that. AJ hits the rack bomb. He sets up for the springboard 450, but that hits knees. Logan mocks AJ's pose and hits a Styles Clash, but he looks like he kind of slips. Like he didn't really jump for it. He just kind of dropped him. AJ immediately no-sold it. Like you could totally buy this being like a shoot, like on the fly. That Styles Clash was so weak, he immediately no-sold it. Hit his own Styles Clash. And then suddenly, one of Logan's friends hops out of the crowd. You see him sneaking around. He's got the brass knucks. And they're about to repeat the spot they've done a bunch of times. And then suddenly a hand stops them. And who is it? The camera pulls out of the hand and reveals the Bloodsport Zone Karrion Kross.
Bloodsport's own.
Yes.
Get out.
From Bloodsport to WrestleMania, Kross takes the brass knucks. He waves the guy off. AJ slides out, tosses that geek aside. And then Kross is all like, hey, man, I'm trying to help you. He hands him the brass knucks, and he says, use those knucks and knock his ass out. And AJ throws the knucks away and drops Kross in a heel spot. Kross did nothing wrong. He was trying to help him. Here, this Mamo is pissed at this. She popped huge for Kross intervening. Because normally she kind of hates Kross because it's not that she hates him. She's just annoyed by him because she's always like, is this guy ever going to wrestle? All he does is shitstorm backstage. And then he finally helped AJ, and then he gets dropped for his troubles. Very, very bad work by AJ. In the end, though, that opens the door for Paul to hit his own big right hand, and then the pulverizer. The mass driver, one of my favorite spots because Kotaro Suzuki will always comment on it on his Twitter for it here.
I'd be pissed too if it was Logan Paul taking my move. Anyone else, sure. Even Tony D'Angelo, take my move. Logan Paul, no.
Tony D is a decent wrestler. He's just in a dumb angle right now. But yeah, I'm with you. I would be very unhappy if Logan does the 450 splash. Or the snap bear driver. I usually like when people take my moves, to be honest with you, as long as they do it well. What do you think of the match?
Not for me. It felt very flat, way too long, not enough rhythm or flow. Like it was just kind of a bummer to me. Like, okay, so we're using AJ Styles purely to give Logan Paul a platform here. Like, this was never really about AJ. It's just because they know he's a good wrestler and they want Logan to look good and they want Logan to be able to do big things. And Logan Paul is probably one of my least favorite wrestlers. It's about spirit. Like, a big thing about pro wrestling is spirit, fighting spirit. And to me, he has no spirit. So it's almost ugly to me when he wrestles.
It's funny because he got praised when he first came into wrestling. A lot of people were excited about him because he had athletic spots, and there's no denying his athletic ability. Again, that lion salt was great. Like, he flew across that ring. But he's such an empty worker. Like, he's all moves, Like, there's no actual psychology to any of his matches. It's all about spots. Like, he's the ultimate spot fest worker. Like, in every match he's in. And they designed spots for him, whether it was the drone in this match. Hell, whether it was that Royal Rumble moment against Ricochet that they had. They had him start off kind of, he turned on Miz. He had that babyface run where he faced Roman for the title. He had that match with Ricochet at SummerSlam. I thought he was progressing okay as like a mid-card spot fest worker, like pretty much. But he's just really repetitive, you know? Like he's just not a good wrestler. Like that's all there is to it, and he really can't be. He doesn't have it in him to really dedicate himself to this because of all the stuff he has going on. And I think the novelty of him wrestling has long worn off years ago at this point. Like I would say like once we got to 2024, the bloom was off the rose with him, and I was never that impressed with him, to be honest with you. Again, I respect his athletic ability. I know he's done stuff with boxing and amateur wrestling. I have no respect for him as a person, and I don't think many people do. But I can still admit that he has athletic ability. But as a complete wrestler, he brings nothing to the table for me. And again, that has nothing to do with his personal life. I'm just not impressed with him at all in the ring. And I think, again, even if you liked him before, I think the bloom is off the rose. And they need to find something else to do if he's going to keep going at this. They really need to find like some new wrinkle in his game, in my opinion, to make him better than what he currently is. Because this match, I mean, it wasn't even like he got that much heat. Like it wasn't like he got nuclear heat compared to something like, Cena at the end of the main event. But 3.94 rating on Cage Match. The inmates agree with us here. I thought that it was too long. What I would have done is I would have cut 7 minutes off of this and add it to the previous match. Like, let Hendry have a real match against Orton, even though it would be dreadfully boring, probably, in all honesty, because I'm no Orton fan. But still, you respect the title, and you could just have Logan do what he does best. He's not meant for 17-minute matches. He needs to have sprint matches that are spot fest, or be a part of multi-man matches where they can formulate a handful of big moves for him to do. Not wrestle real matches against AJ Styles. That's not the best use of him. I would give this, I think,
1.5 stars.
Yeah, that'd be a 3 out of 10. That would be good. I'll be nice and say 2 for AJ's sake. And they talked about him being like near the end of his career, and we know his contract's coming up. There's a lot of rumors about him. It seems like he's happy there in WWE. I don't expect him to want to leave, but for whatever reason with TKO, like they've been known in UFC to cut people who aren't main eventers, without remorse. Maybe they spend a lot of money on AAA. We talked more about that on the night one part. Could he be a casualty of it? Because I don't think they have much use for him as a main eventer anymore. And we know if they did let him go, he could basically waltz into AEW and be a main eventer immediately if he were to leave this company. But it does make you wonder, because if he's not going to leave, he should have just won. Because there's really not much more upside to Logan at this point. Like, he's done all he could do realistically. Like, you're not going to make him the world champion. So, I mean, AJ should have won this overall. Unless he's going to leave, and I would say. But again, there was some good spots and good moments, but not a great match at all, I would say. I'll go 4 out of 10. 2 stars. They hype up the next match with the tag titles. This is obviously a part of a longer term gain with Bayley. Like, I suspect it's going to lead to a heel turn from her. Because they were already teasing that anyway. They had to win the Battle Royal to get the title shot. And then they pull Bayley one day before, like, this match. So when this happened, like the rumors were basically running rampant that Becky would be the mystery partner, and that's what ended up happening. I liked how they did it because early on, Liv was laughing like Bailey's gone. Oh well, first of all, Liv and Raquel came out with matching red outfits with the spandex. Lyra came out with like full golden white bird wings on her. She had the bird feathers in her hair.
It's just so hard to not see the Birds of War from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I'm
It's
a
so
huge
hard
Sunny.
not to see that.
Yeah, I'm a huge Sunny fan. Absolutely. Who is the D of women's wrestling in WWE? And why do we not have more characters like her in wrestling? You have no answers. You never thought about this, have you?
No.
I've stumped him, ladies and gentlemen. I've stumped the devil on this show. But yes, Always Sunny, an amazing show. And that episode, the wrestling episode they did, was awesome. Like, for sure. So, Lyra may not have been as entertaining as those guys and the song they sang, which was amazing. But she's standing there. I love how they did it because Liv was like, Bailey's gone. Like, who you got? She was laughing at her, acting like a badass, and then Becky's music hit. And immediately, Liv and Raquel sold that, like, okay, we're fucked. Pretty much. Becky came out to a great reaction. She walked out to the ring. They posed together. Liv was nervous, handing over the titles. And they start off, like Lyra goes right at Liv, but then Liv pulls Raquel into the match, so her and Becky have some matches. This basically like turned into a tornado tag right away. Like everybody was in and out of the ring. Liv did the Three Amigos at one point. They cut the ring in half on Lyra and hold some heat for a long time until finally she crawls over, gets the tag to Becky. Liv immediately begs off and is like, no. But Becky comes in like a house of fire, hits the Bexploder, looks up for the disarmer, but Raquel breaks it up. She stumbles around, everybody's like writhing around. Liv hits the Oblivion, but Lyra breaks it up at the 2.9 count. She then comes in, hits a big dive to the outside that gets caught, but then turns it into a tornado DDT. Liv comes up behind her with the drop kick, stole Lyra's move there, turns around, immediately gets hit with the manhandle slam for the pin and the win. New tag team champions and the birth of Lyra 2 belts in 8 minutes and 38 seconds. 5.42 ratings from the inmates. What'd you think?
Yeah, I'd give this like a 5. I didn't think that this was anything good, anything bad. Mostly a return platform for Becky. I immediately think, okay, this is going to lead to them dropping the titles and feuding for the IC belt. Could see Becky wanting to not only put over Lyra, but help build the new women's secondary title as well.
Just like she did with the NXT.
The TBS.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Which would be really cool. Happy to see Becky back. Sad to see Bailey not be on the card. That feels kind of dirty. And yeah, Lyra 2 belts rules. I'm a big fan of Lyra. I think she's a great wrestler, so it's very cool.
I'm okay with her missing WrestleMania if they actually follow through with what the story should be, which would be her turning on Lyra. And I think she'll be the one who goes for the IC belt.
I honestly would have flipped this with the women's world title match. WWE seems to have an aversion to putting like their big matches next to each other. AEW is not afraid of doing that. And we've seen that like you can have a classic 3-match block back to back to back. Like just because a match is great doesn't mean that it's going to ruin the quality of the next one if it's also great.
I totally agree with that. And Becky's return would have made for a great moment to start the show off with as well. To be honest as well. I thought the match was fine. I think you and the inmates pretty much hit the nail on the head. A 5 out of 10 match, nothing wrong with it, but nothing special either that you will make this memorable. This is all about Becky's return. And that's all it needed to be. That's a big time return for the division. I think that whatever they do is going to be good. Like I said, I anticipate Bayley getting into the mix as a heel and maybe even winning the IC title from Lyra. And all circling back to a Bayley and Becky match, I think is where this will all end up one way or the other, however they do it. Like I said, I think Liv would be a great next challenger for Io if they want to break off Bianca and Rhea. And you can kind of cook with this women's division on Raw, to be honest with you. Between these two matches, I mean, clearly the opening match was the better of the two. But I think you have good storyline possibilities with all 4 of these women as well as Bayley in there. So now you've got 8 different women that could be interesting characters, which is better depth than we've seen in a long time for a Raw women's division. We just talked about the NXT division. Like you said, they've got some good top heavy, people, like good overacts at the top, good workers, but the depth is not that much there. And I think this Raw division, you have that a lot better now with the return of Becky and the extra star power that would involve at the end of the day. So I like the booking of all of this. I just don't think the match was that good overall. We've got some more celebrities in the building. They shouted out Flava Flav, first of all. Mamaw Pop for him. She was a huge Flavor of Love fan back in the day. His reality show.
I love that show.
I was a much bigger Public Enemy fan personally, but I always liked Chuck D better anyway. He should have got the Love show than Flavor of Love at the end. But I did watch those shows at times when I was a teenager. I'm not gonna lie. On there, I was a bigger I Love New York fan, I guess, than Flavor of Love. But they showed him in the crowd, clock and all. They showed Daniel Cormier, Colby Covington. You had Rick the Kid, Metro Boomin. You had Merab Dashvili, Jameer Gibbs from the Detroit Lions, Tony Hinchcliffe, who got booed heavily there. You had Dean Norris from Law and Order. They showed Ava Max again. So what do you think of the celebrity lineup on tonight? No Dana White like in night one. Instead, you got Colby.
Yeah, so cool. Loved seeing Colby Covington on my TV. That's exactly what I need to pump up the spirits during a 4-hour show. It was cool to see Daniel Cormier. I know he loves this shit. I do too.
Yeah, he's a true fan.
He's always fun to see. But yeah, man, WWE, they love their live gates. They love their merch sales. They love their corporate sponsorships. They love their celebrities. They love their TV ratings. They love this shit.
Some of these celebrities were stretches. Let's be honest.
Yeah. It's to be fair, not as much as in AEW stretches they are sometimes. But
AEW
when Renee Paquette had to do a 4-minute interview with Young Gravy about his first wrestling show.
that was the worst, I would say. But listen, AEW's roster of celebrities would have been huge back in 2006. Okay. Like everyone they brought in, I was a huge fan of. Like Trina, the baddest, I had a huge crush on her when I was a teenager, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like Rick Ross, like these are my guys. Fabulous, these are people I grew up loving. The problem is it's 20 years later, and their stars aren't really where they were back then. But these guys, like I said, I popped Sid Gibbs. To be honest, I had him on my fantasy team last year. I'm not gonna lie. I respect his game. He is a great running back for Detroit. But yeah, interesting of note. I mean, I'm not trying to get political here, but between Dana last night, Colby, and Tony Hinchcliffe here, all of these celebrities got booed heavily. Like the MAGA fan celebrities got heavy boos from the crowd here both nights, I would say, which is an interesting note. Especially with all what had been said earlier in the week from the company. Like the fans were not on board with that at all, which was interesting. So they play this huge video talking about how WrestleMania is going to be in New Orleans next year. And then they play a huge video on Cena and no, what happened first though? We forgot to mention. They go from the celebrities, the glass shatters, and Stone Cold comes out on his ATV. He drives this around the ring, and I shit you not, this actually 100% happened. You could ask Mama about it. We were watching it, and I told her, I was like, it would be hilarious if he crashes this thing. And then probably 5 seconds after I said that, he crashed it into the guardrail and broke the ATV. Unfortunately, this actually did knock a fan over. He almost flipped off the ATV, but he was able to hold on. Everyone, including Nick Khan, runs over to check on this person that got knocked over by this damn ATV. And he gives a basic promo talking about how many people they had. 124,693. Drinks a bunch of beer. He can't ride the ATV back, so he just walks up the ramp. This could be a lawsuit in the end of this.
Yeah, there were pictures of Stone Cold and Nick Khan both talking to her.
Oh, if it was me, my lawyer would already like it would have been so bad. I would have sued the company so bad. I would have made up so many injuries, brother. If this happened to me, I would say I can't feel my legs, I can't feel my neck. Like they would have taken me out on a stretcher, like when that happened. But do we have an update on the woman? Is she okay?
No clue.
I hope the best for her because I mean this was kind of crazy. I don't think we'll be seeing any ATV entrances anymore for Stone Cold at this age after this. I hope that I really hope everything's okay at the end of the day. I know that he knocked her down. I don't know if there was any injuries. Pretty much. But I know Nick Khan wouldn't be over there walking over if it was for no reason. At the end of the day. So we currently don't have any statements from WWE at the moment. Like I said, I hope she sues him. I hope she gets something out of this. She probably paid $10,000 for these front row seats. So at the most, she just get her tickets comped at least. But I hope, most importantly, I just hope that this fan is okay at the end of the day. But I kind of thought about it because when he was riding it, I thought he was going really fast around the ring. I was like, why is he going so fast for this? And then he couldn't stop. And that's the risk you run when you do these vehicle angles. But like I said, I think we won't be seeing this anymore at the end of the day. So then they play the hype video for the main event. It's amazing. All of this was set off by The Rock buying his soul, of which played nothing into this match whatsoever. What the fuck, man? This had to be one of the absolute worst built WrestleMania main events in the history of WrestleMania. And amazingly, it literally started off with one of the best and most anticipated angles in all of wrestling in decades. And you still fucked it up. Look at this hype video. They had to chop this shit down through the first 3 weeks because he wasn't on TV the last 3 weeks. Like, they built to all of this. He didn't say anything about the Rock turn. He didn't say anything about decking Cody. He bitched about the fans. He probably had this exact promo saved on a file somewhere on his computer for literally 10 years. And finally got to read it off in front of everybody. Had the over-the-top cartoon promo talking about Cody next. Like, he was brutal as a heel. Like, say what you want about... And I think with the reaction this main event's receiving, I think for all the talk about him turning heel, like what would it have meant, would it have been cool for the fans, I think we have enough data in our arsenal to realize it was the total right decision for him to never turn heel because he blows at it. Like, he's terrible as a heel. Like, nowhere near WrestleMania level. Even Cody, who's had... Say what you want about Cody, because there's a lot of reasons to criticize Cody, don't get me wrong. But he's had some of the most emotional storylines and best promos and best matches. And last year meant so much to so many fans. And then they come back with this. And you can see why this show underperformed ticket-wise compared to last year. On the back of a John Cena heel turn. It's so clear to me that it wouldn't have surprised me if this decision wasn't made literally until the day of that show. They had no plans for this heel turn. The build has been totally schizo. Like, there's no reason behind anything really when you like even look at his promos even for a second. Then they basically killed the feud for 3 weeks heading into the show itself. Then you have Cena inexplicably praise Vince McMahon on the week of WrestleMania. It's already been shaky ground, but to do that showed so much ignorance, and just it feels like everything about this. I think he was into cutting that first promo where he buried the fans. He's wanted to do it for all of these years. But there was no more in him after that. And when I watched this match, this felt like a match with absolutely no heart and no soul to it. Starting off with Cena coming in with the most basic entrance ever, which was obviously something they intended to do. Had him have a basic entrance. Black and white Titantron, just his name. He walks out, blah, blah, blah. Cody comes out with the gold skull helmet that he has. These motorcycle guys run around. I actually didn't think this was that cool of an entrance at all either. The motorcycle guys.
This was lame.
Yeah,
no, it was just like regular ass motocross kids, and I was like, okay. Like,
yeah, it didn't have anything to do with anything. It didn't fit him, and it wasn't even that cool. If they wanted to do this style of entrance, they should have had a ramp and somebody do like a backflip in the motorcycle. I don't know if this is known, but when I was younger, I had a huge passion for Moto X. Like, I was a big fan of that. I used to ride dirt bikes and run races and those and stuff like that. I loved the X Games. Like, I popped huge for Mike Metzger doing the backflip for the first time. And literally, before I had my concussions, and I can't really drive anymore because of that, because of my sensitivity to light, I never actually drove a car in my whole life. I only drove a motorcycle. So I did have a real passion for this stuff. And to see this super cheesy motocross variant here was kind of offensive to me on a personal level with how lame it looked. Because I would have had an entrance like this for myself at WrestleMania. And I would have done so much more to make it cooler than what we had here. And I think he really needed to have a spectacular entrance. We saw for night one, and we had our criticisms of that night one main event. Like, listen to us talk about it. But they had the huge entrance with the flamethrower, with the band playing. Like, they could have done so much more for Cody's entrance. And I think they needed to go so far over the top to counterbalance Cena's basic entrance, and they failed. They start off dreadfully slow here with Cena in control. He goes outside and stalls a couple of times. When they finally get into the ring, it's the most basic work. Multiple middle rope double axe handles here. And the crowd was dying for this at the end of the day. They finally start to come alive when he teases doing the 5-knuckle shuffle. But as soon as he leans down, Cody pokes him in the eyes. So we start to move things a little faster with the Cody cutter. Cena does his attitude adjustment for a near fall. He hits the attitude adjustment from the top rope for another near fall. He looks for the top rope leg drop, but that gets countered into a power bomb. Cody does his run up into the top rope into the Cody cutter, but Cena turns it into the STF. More stalling here with him pulling Cody back to the ring multiple times. He finally counters, and then Cody pushes him into the referee, so we get a ref bump. Cena pulls the turnbuckle pad off, rams him into the turnbuckle. Cody hits the Cody cutter for a near fall. It takes 10 minutes pretty much. Cena gets the attitude adjuster after the shot to the turnbuckle post, but only a near fall there. And Michael Cole yells out, "What a match! This is unbelievable!" So they're both down. And suddenly, we hear the WrestleMania theme song hit. Fiend comes in. Travis Scott walks out. You see Cena smile like he's accomplished something, or like, I don't know what he was so excited about, but he has this big smile. Travis Scott comes out to the ring with his hardcore title. He takes forever to get to the ring, more stalling. They end up going in there, and Cena looks for. He wants to hold Cody so Travis Scott can hit him. Instead, Cody counters, hits the crossroads, but Travis Scott pulls the ref out like it's a House of Torture match. Cody talks shit on him. He says, "Get in the ring. I didn't forget. I didn't forget what you did." So Travis Scott's like, "Yeah, you want a piece of me? Let's go, motherfucker." So he walks up the steps. He gets in his face, tries to punch Cody. Cody counters, hits the crossroads, and kicks him out of the ring. But he's busy with all of that. Cena's got the title belt. He goes for the belt shot, but Cody counters. Cody snatches the belt. And then we get our melodrama of the night, where Cena begs him. He says, "I'm sorry. Please, whatever you do, don't use the belt." And Cody acts like he's about to hit him, but he pulls up. He's like, "No. I want to do it, but I can't do it. But I want to do it, but I can't do it." He starts to drop the title. Cena kicks him in the balls, just like Elimination Chamber. Picks up the title, nails him with the belt, tosses it aside. 1, 2, 3. John Cena breaks the record for the world titles, and he gets the win. And the commentators say, "This is exactly what Cena said. He told Cody, would he choose to be the good guy or the bad guy? And he chose to be the good guy. And Cena chose to be the bad guy." Before I say my piece, what did you think of this main event?
Well, this match chose to be the bad match.
Yes.
This was a fucking train wreck. Cena looked bad. Cody did absolutely nothing innovative. Nothing interesting or of note in terms of sequences or big moves. It was a very, very average match in terms of work rate and just variety. The Travis Scott interference was terrible. He took so long to get to the ring that he completely killed the moment and the pace and the urgency of like this title win. And again, it's one of those things where you can tell WWE was so much more invested in headlines about this match than they were in creating a good match, because the headline John Cena wins 17th world title isn't enough. They need the name Travis Scott in there because they need more visibility or more headlines or more social media followers or whatever the fuck. And it's like, man, I just cannot care whatsoever about this Travis Scott involvement.
I thought this has to be one of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time. I had my problems with night one's main event, but that was a masterpiece compared to this. I hated everything about this match, dude. I thought the start was awful. Like, Cena, I guess he maybe didn't do any training for this, but I remember when he was at the Chamber, him and Punk, they were able to have a really good segment at the end of that match. This match was awful. Like, Cena has nothing left to give in terms of in-ring work. I think that's obvious. I think his heel work totally sucks. As I said, I think he's really, really bad at it. And on top of it, there were so many things wrong with this match. For us, the people listening to this, the inmates that rated this match, the inmates that scored this at 3.53, there was obviously a lot of this that sucked. But I think the ultimate failure of this match, after all was said and done, with the stalling, the ref bump, the Travis Scott, the lame finish, this crowd gave a huge ovation to Cena winning the title here. He got a complete babyface pop. Michael Cole's defending Cena on commentary and saying how much he'll always respect him. Wade is at least trying to play along with the storyline and talking about what an asshole Cena is. The crowd popped huge. The Rock was nowhere in this feud at all after allegedly setting this all into motion. It makes you wonder. I think hindsight being 2020, it would have been better if they had just let Cena and Cody be a dream match. Just have them have a babyface moment and like let them have an epic dream match type of deal. That might not have been good because I don't think Cena can have a good version of that. But at least you could have told a cohesive storyline, and this show could have went off the air with them shaking hands and respect and all that. Like, it would have been basic. It wouldn't have been exciting. It wouldn't have even been average, let alone good. But this was straight donkey cheeks. Like, everything about this heel turn, this feud, this match, like, straight zeros. Like, to me, like, all of it is a 0 out of 10. Like, I truly believe this was worse than any Roman Reigns main event match in WrestleMania history. Even the Undertaker match, as dreadful as that was, I think this was worse than all of those. Like, I think this is among the worst main events ever in WrestleMania, and I'm having a hard time thinking of one I would say is actively worse, to be honest. Because that, I mean, like I said, that Roman and Taker match was one of the worst matches in WrestleMania history. I mean, I don't know. I think this has to be considered up there, and I think this is a significant step down from night one's main event, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I would give it a 1, so I can't really argue that at all. It's just a very bad match, and it's so unfortunate because this is the culmination of the biggest angle to happen probably this decade.
I think Roman and Triple H might have been a worse one than this, to be honest. But this one, for the exact reason you said, that Roman Triple H match was a match nobody was looking forward to anyway. Like, this was your big angle. A John Cena heel turn that's been what we've wanted for 20 years almost. And we finally get it, and it's so ass. Like, everything about this sucks. And I have no interest in this title reign whatsoever. Like, and look at when we did the turn. Go back and listen to that Elimination Chamber show we did. We had a lot of hype for that. I thought the turn itself was great. And I thought there was a ton of potential for him as a heel. This gives you, on paper, an entire year-long story. Who was going to dethrone Cena to save the title and bring it back to WWE? And that was before he even talked about taking the title home with him and retiring the belt. It's just such an easy story. Save the company, save the title, bring it home. You could have matches with young guys similar to the U.S. title. We brought up somebody like an Ilya Dragunov back from injury. I said I think Gunther would be a great challenge if things had played out a little differently in the match. And there's tons of guys you could have epic matches with. You could even do a couple of nostalgia matches like him and Orton if you wanted to do one for that. They have a laundry list of baby faces you could go to. But unfortunately, I have no interest in this and where it's going. I just want it to end. And I just want him to be done with his character. Because I have no interest in him as a heel. Again, him as a babyface isn't that exciting to me at this point. Because it really is just kind of like... there's no real new ground he can cover. But at least he could be like a warming presence to the roster to be the lovable legend. But even that's blown now. I think his reputation has like taken some real hits between the last week of publicity, the stuff he did with the build. Some people actually liked that promo that he did on Cody. I thought it sucked. It really made me his performance more than the content itself. But I do know some people liked it. I don't know how anybody could like this match. I think this match sucked. And it was a terrible end to what I thought the first half of this show was kind of like they were kind of splashing. And again, we weren't exactly hyped going into this. But from the opener, we loved that match. That was one of the better matches of all of WrestleMania weekend, I would say. Like, an indie show, like you could argue. The Priest and Drew match was awesome. Like, that match kicked ass. The Intercontinental match had a feel-good moment. The Hendry match was bad for burying him, but also was a breezy, lighthearted match. From then on with the Logan Paul stuff, I thought that's the the regular criticism on these reviews is that this show fell off a cliff at the end, and I think it's a shame. I will say this. I'll throw it to some of the inmates right now. Fibroptica 98 said 1 out of 10. John Cena said it. John Cena did it. He ruined wrestling. Nothing to remember from this match. A champion manhandled like a nobody. No significant fault except for the finishers. I understand that the rivalry revolved around the fact that Cena didn't know how to wrestle and that he was going to do everything to ruin wrestling, certainly. But nothing forced us to have such a shameful match. Cody Rhodes didn't deserve to be sullied. He could have had offenses, done some good wrestling while his opponent didn't make an effort. it would have had the same effect. And this ending, The Rock, who doesn't even come, even though he was the object of the rivalry, a real shame. I feel like my life was stolen from me. I'm sorry for that, Fibroptica. I feel not that strongly, but I mostly agree with that review overall. Let me see if I can find a good review on these. There's a lot of zeros I'm seeing on these ratings. This currently has a 3.48 rating. Okay, so let's go to it. HV85106 writes 10 out of 10, which is, I highly disagree at the end of the day. But he says, I'm aware this is an extremely controversial reception right now, especially with the way it finished. But I absolutely love this. The storytelling of Cena not being as agile as he used to be, so he works a match that suits his strengths. He's clearly getting in his bully bag. Wrestling like a heel feels like something he's wanted to do for a long time. Cody was on his A game. Everything prior to the overbooked finish worked for me. Then the ref bump. I normally will dock points for this, and I did last night against the Punk Rollins Reigns match. But I'm starting to feel like if there ever is a time to go all out and overbook your finish, to me it is the main event of WrestleMania. Travis Scott is not someone I like either. But have you considered that choice might have just been what they wanted to maximize heel heat for Cena? People will still cheer the final boss. This may be my most controversial 5-star of all time. Dethroning Brett versus Shawn at WrestleMania 12. That match was 1 million times better than this, my friend. Like, you are absolutely wrong. Like, it's not even the same stratosphere, judging by this reception.
The real main event, Dylan versus the cage match comments now.
I absolutely adored the work in the ropes, and the other booking at least had a storyline sense of existing. Plus, Cena gets his 17. 5 stars. That's not true. This is extreme outreach. Most commenters agree with me that it was a 0. And I know that Brett and Shawn match was controversial. I'm of the opinion. I mean, I wouldn't rate that match 5 stars. Don't get me wrong. But I'm of the opinion that match became so overrated, it became underrated. Whereas, because people turned it into, well, because WWE tried to make that match like a greatest of all time candidate, which it wasn't. But then people turned that into this match actually sucks. And that's not true in a lot of ways. I go into it on the Eastern Layer Patreon. I have a whole review of the 90s Project of that match. It was like number 40 or something in 96 for me. It wasn't a number 1. It wasn't even a top 10. But it wasn't bad either, and they deserve credit for what they did, in my opinion. Again, that match was a really good match. This match had nothing to it, in my opinion. Again, that's my opinion. You are totally free to rate this match a 10 out of 10, or whatever you want to rate it. But I also have the right to disagree wholeheartedly with that, especially bringing up that match. But yeah, this match got shat on. Nobody liked it, hardly. Not nobody, but a lot of people didn't like it. 3.44 out of 10, the lowest rated match on WrestleMania, on either WrestleMania night. It was the lowest rated match, and deservingly so. And the show started with one of the best matches of the weekend, and it ended with one of the worst. And that's on a week where we had Butterbean to contend with. 5.33 rating for this show. Just below night 1, which had 5.75. I personally thought this was it ended so shitty. And we didn't even love the main event on night 1. But to me, that was way better than this. But I thought the first 3 matches were all either great or accomplished something cool with the Dominic win. That finish was so bad, though. I think I would have to agree with the inmates on the overall ratings, too. I think both shows were a 5 or a 6 for different reasons. But I thought the best match on either show was the opener, the women's title triple threat. And I thought the main event was atrocious. So yeah. With that said, we'll kind of quickly branch out for an overall, retrospective on all this. But just for WrestleMania, just for WrestleMania 41, it's all in the can now. What were your feelings on this weekend as a whole for WrestleMania?
Not including the collective or anything.
No, this is only WrestleMania. We'll talk about the collective after this, but I just want to talk about this show. Yeah.
Week.
Or these two shows.
Week. There are two matches that I would recommend coming out of these shows, out of the 16, 14 that happened. Bad feuds going in. Can't say I'm very excited to see what's next coming out. If this is the Cena match that we have to look forward to, like you said, Hollywood House of Torture. This is gonna be a long fucking year.
And they pretty much booked themselves to a quarter. Unlike with Jay, who could lose the title quickly, Cena basically has to hold this title all year until his retirement now. So, like you said, it's going to be a long-ass year. I recommended two matches each for both shows. Night one, I recommended Jade and Naomi and Tiffany and Charlotte. And night two, I recommended the first two match. The women's title three-way and the street fight with Priest and Drew. And I thought the best two matches were both on night two. The two matches there. Tiffany and Charlotte would be a fine third. And I think the ending of that, again, the closing shot with Tiffany standing there with the lost tooth might have been my overall highlight of either WrestleMania to me. That felt like a legit star-making moment. Like, Io won, and that's cool, and the match was great. But there still is a sense that they're going to focus more on the other two. With the other one, Tiffany had to totally earn that for real, and it got into a really great moment. But yeah, I definitely think this was a weak WrestleMania. If you compare it to last year's WrestleMania, even, I mean, that's obviously going to always be known for the night Cody knocked off Roman. And again, that was a match I didn't like at all. I thought that was a total trash match, even if it had a great finish. But even then, that match was like way better than this, in my opinion. I have no love for that at all. Last year, you had the Sammy and Gunther match, which was a fantastic match. You also had Jimmy and Jay, which was one of the worst matches of the year. It's hard for me to say this Cena match was worse than that. But that match was quickly forgotten in the mid card. It sucked, don't get me wrong. But I think this had so many more worse, repercussions to it. And it was ass. The match sucked objectively, in my opinion. Let alone the finish, which nobody liked. Last year you had Drew and Seth, which was a good opener on night two. Not nearly as good as the triple threat this year, to be fair. You had Ripley and Becky and that, and Bayley and Io, which some people liked. I didn't think that was that great, but a lot of people liked it. And then the end with the Cody. I think last year ended on such a high note, it's hard not to give the edge to 40, but they are kind of close in quality. And WrestleMania should not be 5 out of 10 shows. And last year's build was a lot better, too. With the tag match, The Rock did so much heavy lifting that was missing this year. So overall, I think last year I would take over this one. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but overall, let's talk about the whole week. We done 5 different shows on this damn week and talked about even more than that overall. What was kind of your highlights of the weekend? You don't have to rank them or anything. Just from a moment standpoint, and we'll kind of get to our top 5 matches of the week, like we can come up with. What was kind of your big moments of the weekend?
The beginning of Bloodsport. God, just the atmosphere of spring break, like the Sabu retirement. The crowd at Marvelous.
I thought Fuego's unmasking angle had to be one of the best.
Unmasking.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments all weekend was in GCW versus TJPW versus DDT. Yuki Onaya made Maki Ito cry. And then when Maki Ito was crying, it affected Microman so much that he began to cry as well when he tried to console her. And then one called Manders went in there to confront Yuki Onaya, who shoved Manders, which of course led to Manders crying. So you had Microman, Maki Ito, and one called Manders all holding each other, sobbing. Yuki Onaya looks at them, realizes what he's done. He's now crying as well. That was probably one of my favorite moments all weekend.
It literally brought you to tears.
Yeah, it was fucking hilarious. I loved it. Honestly, I don't care. Butterbean and Minoru Suzuki was a moment.
It was a moment. That is true. What about Mickey's in-ring promo?
No, not that. Definitely not that.
Maki had a hell of a week. Like overall, like what a weird week that she had.
Yep.
What would be, because I think all of those were great moments that we said there, for sure. We did miss the Heels Have Eyes, which we were planning to watch beforehand, but it's just there's only so many hours of the day and we need sleep at certain points.
That show ran from 1 to 4 in the morning local time.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't know why they did that, but whatever. Like overall, yeah, I think they did a lot of good stuff there. I think the Dragon Gate stuff and the 6-man, everything Shun did in that was among my favorites. But like I said, this week as a whole, was not really about, and it's a shame because it ended with literally the ending of a record that's been drilled into our heads for decades and decades. But for the most part, this week was more about like vibes, like overall than anything. There were no epic moments outside. Again, I would say Fuego unmasking, all of that was really well done. There was a lot of cool stuff overall, like on these shows for sure. I'm not hating on the quality at all. Again, I think overall it turned out okay for a week that I wasn't that hyped for going into. My opinion is much more positive coming out than going into it. But I still think there's a lot of work to do to make it actually good, I would say overall. And it starts right at the top with WrestleMania, in my opinion. What were some of your favorite matches? Like, give us a top 5, and maybe more if you can think of any.
All right, so my 2 honorable mentions, that Microman Yuki Onaya versus One Cold Manners and Maki Ito match I talked about, and then Effie versus Dark Sheik. I thought something that was really cool, not talked about much this weekend, was that if you wanted to see the GCW World Title, you had to tune into Big Gay Brunch, where it was defended in the main event between a gay and trans wrestler, which I feel like is probably a first for a world title match in pro wrestling. So that's some pretty cool history making right there. Match was really good as well. Top 10 of the week, going from 10 down to 1. Masha Slamovich versus Miyu Watanabe from Tokyo Joshi Pro. The clusterfuck battle royale won by Brody Lee Jr. I'm just a really big fan of the clusterfuck. How you essentially have all your sequences. The Up girls started it, and they had a whole thing with Kerry Morton, and then all of a sudden Snitsky's in there kicking a baby. Then Megan Bain's working with all the women. There's a big Pero killing the twink segment. It's awesome. Then Aja Kong versus Senka Akatsuki. Loved it. Thank you, Dylan, for the rec. Minoru Suzuki versus Yoshihiko. Mitsuki versus Miyu Yamashita. Ben K, Hyok, and KZ versus the Z-Rats. Megan Bain versus Bozilla. Charlie Dempsey.
That match ruled.
Yep, so good. Charlie Dempsey versus Shinya Aoki. Atticus Kogar versus Fuego del Sol. And my favorite match of the week, Io Sky versus Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley.
How about that? WrestleMania coming through in the clutch on night 2.
Pretty crazy.
The power of Io continues going on here.
She really is just so fucking good.
Yeah, she's awesome. And Bianca's right there with her, to be honest. For me, that's definitely up there. that triple threat has to be up there. I would say the tag match on the DGUSA show, Arcangel Divino and Ultimo Maldito versus Arrow Panther and Fight Panther Jr. I thought it was a jaw-dropping match. The main event of that show is also in my top 5, the 6-man you mentioned. I actually enjoyed Miyu and Mizuki was a great match, don't get me wrong. I actually enjoyed Miyu and Natty a little bit more, to be honest, along with Chuck Dempsey and Aoki. Those would be up there. They're the start, because I watched the Stardom shows and I did watch the TJP shows. I thought they were good. Not great. The retirement match, the Max versus retirement match, I think would be in my top 5 as well, to be honest. So that would round it out, I would say. But overall, the number 1 match, I'd probably put the Natty and Miyu match as an honorable mention in hindsight. But Dempsey and Aoki would be there. Fuego and Atticus. The 2 DGUSA matches and the triple threat on night 2 on there. That tag match would be my number 2, but I think it's close. I love that tag match, and I love that trios match at the end. But I think I'm gonna have to agree. Unfortunately, that's boring audio, but I think you made the right call. Io, Bianca, and Rhea, MVPs of WrestleMania week, inexplicably when you think about it. But yeah, so there was a lot there. A great smorgasbord of shows that pretty much any kind of style of fan you have something to like, I would say. And I think that's something really cool about the whole week. And I'm so happy that we had the time, and we really forced the issue. We had to make time, both of us, especially me, with everything going on. Usually it's you that's more busy, but this week I had to deal with some crazy stuff going on. But I really, really, really loved doing all of these shows with you. And there's a bunch of shows we didn't even get to cover in full, but we've mentioned in passing. At that point, we probably talked about 10, 12 shows overall when you look at matches we brought up. And that's how strong and how deep the lineup is for the collective and the WrestleMania week in general. I hope next week we get to see something from next week. I hope next year at WrestleMania we get to see IWTV back again with a presence. I hope, for God's sake, we can have some better build to the WrestleMania itself on here. And I want the Cena thing to work. I've really lost all faith in it. But next year, I hope we can do it all again, man, and do it even bigger and bigger. I hope there's even more shows that we can love and talk good about it. Maybe criticize. I think every show has its, criticisms it's worthy of. But overall, I'm so happy with what the work we put in, all that happened, the big news with AAA. It was a ton of fun, and I'm really thankful I had you along for the ride, brother.
Likewise, this was just an unbelievably fun week, and I'm very sad it's over, but I'm happy we got to do it.
Absolutely, I feel the same way. But the WrestleMania week may have ended, but Wrestle Update has not ended. We will continue and be back very soon for everybody with a more normal show of some sort. Or maybe not. Who knows what we'll do next? I have some ideas. Me and Nello will discuss it off the air and bounce back at a later date. Not tomorrow, though. We've done all of these shows in the matter of 3 days. We had our own. Like, we were in that speedball schedule this year.
Yeah, truly. We had as many podcasts as Matcha Slamovich had matches.
Yeah, the Masha, the workhorse schedule.
Yep.
On WrestleMania week. Much like always, I say it at the end of every show. Do you got anything to say for the people before we get out of here for the final time on? We are recording at the end of Easter, right? We literally recorded immediately after the end of the night too, by the way. So do you have anything to say before we get on out of here?
Happy WrestleMania week. I hope you had a really good time.
Absolutely. We will see you guys next time. Let us know what you think of everything. Let us know what you think of the shows, or matches that you watched. We would really appreciate it because, as always, you know I love you. And until next time, this has been your Wrestle Update.